Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also below this video you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. Speaking of Patrons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon, so a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Austin Whitsitt, John Kays, DL Hill, Julian Jeremiah, Tommy Swagnuts, Michael Kahn, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Will Brax, Mel B. Styles, Troy Shuker, Bose Nail, Samson, Maris, Hairy Blade, Mobile Mac 777, Neo the One, Lost Cat FE, Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Mike, Muted, Dick Earth Skeptic, Maria Neelands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, Rob H, The Real Gabster, Windrider, Liam Nedrick Jr., Abraham Mohammed, Naibai, Adrian Quintana, Skeptic 936, Life is Short, Fireball X, theflatearthchannel.com, Texas Mike, Edwin Johnson and David Wayne Foster. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I will hand over to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their conversation while I set up for today's live show. Good. How are you?
Not too bad. I'm all right.
Bit quiet in here.
Yeah. I have to check.
No, everything's working just great.
Even you sound a little sleepy there.
No, I'm perfectly all right. You did happen to catch me in a yawn, but that's not because I'm sleepy. No more than normal. Spent quite a considerable amount of time yesterday trying to figure out why a certain subscriber wasn't appearing in the chat. And typically you just go to your hidden users in community settings and you just remove them if like they've been banned accidentally or something like that. But they weren't in there, these actually two individuals. And I explained that to them. And then they persisted and were like, you said you'd get this sorted. Not that I did. I was like, I'll have a look at it when I get a chance. Anyway, I was then intrigued because I thought, I'm sure there's another way of finding, there's another list that you have to go to. And so I got in touch with Google support and they were surprisingly helpful, considering there's only ever been one other occasion that I've had to get in touch with Google support for any reason. And it was just there in a chat box and I just chatted away with an actual person. And they, after explaining what the problem was, they just explained that if you block somebody, that is to say that if you're not a moderator and you block somebody, that has implications across all of Google's platforms. Yep, for that person who has blocked them. Now, that also affects anybody that they're moderating for. Yeah? So it permeates.
Oh.
Yeah, I didn't know this. I when he explained it to me first time, I thought I understood what he said, but I was like, surely not. So I got him to reiterate it and make it absolutely clear what he was saying. Or she, I don't know if it's a he or she. Anyway, after that, I was like, okay, fine. I video screenshot a little video to my moderators and started up a new Skype group called Nathan Oakley's Moderators or something like that. And basically played out the video explaining exactly that with my chat and the screen capture and an example with someone else's. I think I used Bev's chat feed to make the examples and show what I meant by block and what I meant by hide and all the rest of it. And I had to sort of lay this out for my moderators and say, look, there's certain things that you need to be aware of. And if you're potentially blocking somebody, that does have wider reaching implications in terms of who you actually mod for. So yeah, I've shared that as much as to the best of my ability. With the only thing I actually asked for was, look, these two particular individuals who are all for this remain unnamed. Can you just see if you've got them in your block list, which you have to go through Google services to get to? Gave them the link, and just see if they're there. If they are, can you remove them just as a favour on this occasion? Because obviously it's not up to me who my moderators block, but it does actually affect the channel, so I thought I'd better make them aware. And they're all coming back to me one after the next. I haven't got anybody in my block list. You know what I mean? Things like this.
Did you end up finding out which moderator it was, or
did I heck? I wasn't going to try and assume that it was any of them. You know, I just went on the information I was given by Google services or whatever they're called, Google support rather, and just passed it on to the moderators. That's all you can do, isn't it? I don't want to point fingers. By the same token, you know, typically when anybody asks me to do anything like that, I know what kind of a hassle is involved, and I normally just say no. It's like, if you've got yourself banned by one of my mods, I trust my mods. Therefore, if you get yourself banned by a mod, that's kind of tough luck. I'm not even going to ask them, you know, what was your reason for banning X, Y? It's like, they made a mod, therefore it's in there. I trust their judgment. They wouldn't be a mod if I didn't.
Exactly. I mean, why waste your time when you have the mods to do the job, right?
Well, exactly. That's what they're there
here
for. I'm very fussy about the people that do instructors, moderators, and often people are asking me for a wrench, and it's like, well, no. I've got to actually trust your judgment for me to give you a wrench. And that is not to say that people who haven't got a wrench, I don't trust their judgment. But it also does. Literally, for the first time in about 2 years, all alone in Google+, there's nobody there. It's just me. Will the show start with just Discord? We shall see. It'll be a first if it does.
Will it?
Maybe. If it does, I'll be leaning on you for conversation. I can tell you that for nothing.
Good afternoon, all.
Hello, George.
Hey, George. The uncomfortable silences were something that initially, if you go back to some of the really early debates, I would start off the stream and it wasn't recorded, it was only live streamed. So often you guys who get here early will sit around when there's nothing really going on, and that I've like kept since as the pre-show. In other words, unless you're sort of a dedicated subscriber, which would mean that you're either paying as a member or tuning in 48 hours later to watch it on the second channel, you know, you may or may not be interested in this, what's going on now, this conversation, the preamble. Hence the live shows are typically once everyone's warmed up, like now. We're effectively warming up for the live show. But the people who don't want to necessarily listen to that had to listen to it in the early days, because the whole show was just live streamed. I just started with no guests, chucked out the link to the public, and said anybody can join. So I would be sat there sometimes for a prolonged period with literally nobody, and you know, there wasn't a great deal I could do about it apart from appearing on camera every 2 or 3 minutes and saying there's a link below if you want to join, and that would be about it. And sometimes there would be just prolonged periods where I'd be sat here with no one to talk to, and there's only so many times you can regurgitate the same thing, right? So it isn't necessarily an uncomfortable silence for me when there's nobody talking. It doesn't necessarily fuss me, especially in the pre-show. It's like, that's just the way it is sometimes.
Yeah, but for a show, like, it kills the show. You can't have silence on a live show. But you've come a long way, Nathan. I remember. Sorry, Ryan, you're trying to say something?
That's just Neil joining.
No. Just
Oh, sorry, Ryan.
I was gonna say, I remember, like, I was a Jaren, Morgile, Glowbusters fan. I remember the first time I heard your show, I was like, "What the hell is wrong with this guy? I'm not watching this shit." But then I watched again, and then I got hooked. I remember. But I was definitely put off the first time I heard you, Nathan, to be honest.
By
Opposite with me, man. When I heard Nathan, I said, "This is it. Where have I been all this time?"
I'm more intrigued to know what put you off. Presumably somebody getting a right pasting and me being very aggressive with them.
Yes, it was that. It was
Well,
one of the
Yeah.
earliest debates,
I see.
and
Well,
it was just it was a free for all. It was
yeah, things have changed since then.
Yeah, it
You
was
know,
similar.
now when people piss me off, I just tell them to fuck right off. So get out. I'm only joking.
Yeah,
people
it used
say
to
it
be
all the
similar,
time,
now
and
I'm here every day.
it was Rebel.
I've been
Oh,
for
sorry,
years.
Ryan. Go ahead. Sorry.
You're good. No, I was just saying, yeah, I remember those days, and now I'm still still here, and I've been here for years.
I get that criticism all the time, and well, it's one of those things that you can't really say, it's just not true. It's like, yeah, a lot of the time the people that come here are intentionally trying to antagonize the host of the show. That's their main purpose. They know they have to employ tactics, and often one of the tactics is to just rile up the host or rile up the people around the host if the host can stay calm. So you're often dealing with that. You know, somebody will have the opponent drop the name of a guest into the middle of an argument just so that they can get the chaos brought in from our side by just by name dropping. Now, back in the day, people would bite on that instantly. Neil still does. But, you know, it's just one of those things that's a tactic that's employed, and you get to see that. Now, if you're not doing it, you just hear suddenly a load of audio chaos. You don't necessarily twig that the opponent's employed a tactic to cause that to happen. You just see that it's happened. You just see the effect and go, wow, that's a lot of shouting and annoyance, and I don't like this. Well, that's the idea. That's them winning. So I can't really say, no, you're wrong to anybody who says that. For example, Rebel was the name of the guy, the black guy we were talking about, that would be critical of me in the comments. He'd join the show occasionally, but he'd be critical of me in the comments and say, look, this information would go up so much better if you just remain calm and, you know, polite with them and just reason with them calmly. That would be so much more effective educationally. I'm like, yeah, but it's really hard, mate. And I tried to reason and explain with him. Then he joined, got into a wrangle-dangle, and afterwards apologised to me. He's like, yeah, take it all back. Because he obviously lost his temper with the person that kept talking over him, or whatever tactic was being employed to rile him up was working, and suddenly he got it. It's like, it's not an easy thing to do. But by the same token, once you realise that, it suddenly becomes like crack. You want more. Hey, Eli. First time I've seen your face, my friend. Handsome chap that you
I
are.
was laughing when that guy said that.
Say again, Neil?
Eli, you look just like the picture. I was saying I was laughing when that guy was telling you that. I think he was even telling QE about it, like you should be more calm and the way we treat people. And then I don't even think it was a week later.
For some reason, I think I remember that show. I mean, a lot of people
I
came
do,
on
'cause
and
I
told
was
you
laughing.
the same thing, right?
So Nathan, who was I giving a hard time in chat the other day? You told me to lay off him. He was complaining about you too.
I was hoping Adam was here. I guess I'll have to message him. Am I right in recalling him saying something about the maths being converted from flat to globe, and it ends up becoming 69 miles per degree because of this conversion?
Adam just joined, so mathematics-related questions he's probably good with, but he's literally just this second joined and only heard half of what you said.
Ooh, what's up, Adam?
All right, Eli. I heard 69 degrees, 69 miles per degree.
Yeah, okay. So I was asking, am I correct in recalling you saying that there's a conversion in the mass from flat to globe, and when they do that, that's when it becomes 69 degrees per mile?
Well, in reality, you move 69 miles south, then Polaris will drop a degree. Now, what you attribute that to is where it becomes a ball. Whether you attribute that to perspective because you're further away from it, so it's going to be lower, or whether you put it that perspective plays no role whatsoever and it's just due to the reorientation of the surface at a different 1 degree angle away after those 69 miles. So you're pointing 1 degree further back, hence why it looks 1 degree lower, but no perspective involved there, just Earth curve causing the replacement of the star.
Okay.
Do you follow?
So I
move back,
misunderstood that.
you move back, and then it drops. Well, then you can ascribe an R value, radius value to that effect. That's all that's happening.
If you stood still, Eli, and you're just working with the sun, then an hour later the sun slightly lower or higher on your horizon, isn't it? They would ascribe that repositioning due to rotation.
Yeah.
As opposed to the sun passing over and moving away or moving towards us.
Yeah, I can understand that if you just do one reading, but if you do 3 readings, which is required for you to find your position on the ground, those circles are of equal altitude.
Right.
That's why I don't understand why you can reassert this as a. They can reassert this as a globe proof because it's not.
You can't.
You need 3 readings.
Adam's just describing moving away from Polaris, right? It's not describing what you do with the sextant. It's just describing the observation of moving away from it and watching it drop, and then you can reassign that effect with an R value and a spherical radius as the cause, right? But when you actually come to using a sextant and doing triangulation, you can't assert that as a globe proof. Causing a bit of audio
that's what I
chaos,
meant.
Eli. Hold on one sec. Gotta be vigilant with the mute in there, Eli.
Oh, sorry. Okay, yeah.
If you don't get it, I'd rather you just said it again, you know, or repeat your statement of fact, which is this doesn't work as a globe proof. No, it definitely doesn't.
That's what I mean, because I understand that if you are observing Polaris in this case, and if you move away 1 degree, it has the perspective that it dropped on your reading. But if you double check your reading with other celestial bodies, what you're going to find is that you are within the circle of equal altitude, so meaning flat plane.
Right. Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, Hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also below this video you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. Now we are joined by 10th Man, Neil, Eli, Adam Meakin and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon, welcome. I was concerned we might start without a panel, as there was almost nobody here in the G Plus panel just before we went live, but good to have everybody. It's good to be here, Nathan. We're so excited to prove it's flat and debunk the globe. I am too. I'm glad you're all excited.
Yeah, woohoo!
I'm stoked.
It's exciting. It is exciting.
Let's do this.
So, yeah, if you're not excited by the prospect of a fundamental change in your paradigm, then I don't know what's going to excite you. You know what I mean? That said, this is an educational show, so let's do a little bit of housekeeping. Now, I'll check if everyone's off mute while I'm doing this, but the purpose of housekeeping is to address fundamental premises of the globe model that don't jive with reality. So, on that basis, we'll say hello to Arwin first, and then we'll do a full stack of housekeeping questions, hopefully with a bit of interaction from Discord. We'll see how we get on. Hey, Arwin.
Hello, good afternoon. Is it as nice weather over there as it is here?
Yeah, it's just overclassed car wash weather. Okay, let's do some housekeeping. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge, that would be a horizon, formerly known as Earth curve?
Nope. Not at all.
I think you need R for that.
Nope.
There's still plenty of mathematical models describing it. That's about it.
Yeah, descriptions of Earth curve are in models of Earth curve. There's an actual claim that the horizon is Earth curve, though. I mean, we all know it isn't, and I'd like that to be expressly stated.
Well, to have an Earth curve, you need R, and they don't have it. And this is also the same mistake that they keep moving forward with the Sextant argument. I got a video I saw yesterday that was sent to me, and is it Bob, the science guy, or one of these guys that did it? I can't remember. And he's still taking the measurement from the center of the Earth. Well, if you're going to say you're on the surface of the Earth using the sextant, but you're really taking it from the center, you're going to need R for that first, not a presupposition.
Perfect. Anybody want to pipe in on Discord before we move on? Adam, go ahead.
I was just going to add, really, it's thanks to the flat earthers, we've come to the realization or read the description properly, where the horizon is the apparent position where the sky seems to meet the land. So with that understanding that it's not a physical place, that it's an optical effect, which is the diminishment of our vision. It's the point where we can no longer resolve things. And with that understanding, that destroys the simple fact that it is a physical place you can draw a tangent line to.
Precisely. In the globe model, it is a physical, geometric location that you can draw a tangent to measure drop and derive R values. In other words, it's the leading edge of a sphere that's supposed to block your view of things in the distance, and that's precisely what their calculations claim to infer when looking at optical imagery. Any more for any more?
Well, there was a bit last night on QEs. A word came up. I know you like new words, and it was a new one to me. Morosophy. I would suggest that the ballers have lots of morosophy.
Morosophy.
Morosophy. So morosophy, and it's a hybrid of two Greek words. Words for moron and Sophia, which is moronic wisdom. So if somebody's can be absolutely know everything about a topic, but what they know about it is moronic, they're morosophic in their understanding. So they may have all the detail in the world, but their understanding is a fool's understanding of something. For example, thinking that the horizon is a physical leading edge.
Morosophic to what's the medicine where you dilute stuff down by orders of magnitude to increase its power? What's that called?
Homeopathy.
Homeopathy. So if you have an extensive knowledge of homeopathy, that would be morosophic knowledge.
Yeah. If you felt that, homeopathy, certainly how homeopathy is portrayed, then you could say that you had that the full knowledge, the full wisdom of homeopathy, but the actual practice itself would be moronic.
Okay, well, to take it further into the absurd then, if you had an extensive biological understanding to the point where you could do detailed graphic artwork of unicorn, what's the word? Anatomy, then that would be morosophic. Okay.
You knew it inside out, but the reality is that the knowledge itself is moronic.
So, just to bring a close to this, the understanding and wisdom of the sky vacuum standing in violation of second law of thermodynamics would be a morosophic understanding. Is the understanding bit redundant?
No, because you have full knowledge of all the detail of unicorn anatomy. Yeah. Any question you know about it, you know the answer. Anybody can pose a question, you've got the answer. You have full knowledge, but the topic is moronic.
Right. Heliocentrism isn't a moronic topic. I often give it credit for being a useful philosophical appreciation in model format of how the sky moves. So that has its useful application. But the reification of the heliocentric model into an actual world you stand upon, and the understanding of how you stand upon that non-existent world that doesn't exist, would be morosophic.
Yeah.
I would argue that it's almost I would argue that it's almost plagiarism, because from all of the quotes that I'm coming across, they basically say you pick up all of the data and you put it around the sun as opposed to around the earth, and it's exactly the same. That sounds like plagiarism on a grand scale to me.
Who are they plagiarizing?
Well, the coordinate system, it's not like there's nothing physically different. It's just a different way of looking at things.
Different between what and what?
It's exactly the same, and over a flat plane, the math was there first. All they did was just transfer that over to the belief in a heliocentric universe.
Well, it wasn't necessarily a transference, it was an insertion. So you take what is your understanding of these coordinate systems in this example, and then you just insert R. So it's not necessarily transposing or duplicating or replicating or plagiarizing, it's inserting. They're inserting R. Any evidence of the R value?
Black Swan.
Not at all.
Yes, whoever said that from Discord. If the Earth is a sphere with a radius of 3959 miles, then every distance to horizon can be no more than 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. and the distance to the horizon in the black swan is in excess of the geometric limitations of a sphere, Earth, radius 3959, therefore the Earth is not a sphere. Debunk the physical geometric sphere edge horizon as a geometric sphere edge horizon. You can no longer derive R values from it, you can no longer measure tangents to it. The entirety of the globe model hinges, figuratively and not even metaphorically if you talk about tangents, on you having a horizon that's physical. So without it, the globe model, that reification of the model into a reality you think you stand on, is dead. Sorry, whoever that was, go ahead.
Hello?
Eli.
Can you hear me?
Hey, Owen.
I was trying to talk in like the last 5 minutes and there was no sound coming through. Weird.
We hear you now with a lot of...
All right, I just wanted to say still about the morosophy. Isn't that like kind of malformed? Shouldn't it just be called sophists and sophistry, because they're specialized in something that's completely irrelevant because it's not actually based on physical reality? While morosophy could be more regarded as to what we study, namely the nature, the real world nature of stupidity. Right?
No. It's the line that you use. We even call them morosophous, wise fools. Yeah, so they know everything within the detail of the topic they're talking about. It's just the topic is moronic. It's clearly nonsensical. Yeah, so heliocentric model is a great example. There are certain things that instantly disprove it, but they will still carry on and have all of this knowledge and wisdom within that topic. It's
like an expert in the way the Star Trek Enterprise works.
But they don't understand their own discipline, though. They just apply it. They don't understand. They couldn't have a conversation about how they do what they do. We do that. They don't have Sophia. They don't have the knowledge. They just apply this because they're sophists.
No. Hold on. Sophistry is where you have good arguments or clever arguments, but you're employing them purely to be deceptive. So I would say that sophistry is the type of people that intentionally commit a lie. The type of people I ban are the sophists. So Rumpus could be described as a sophist or a sophist, depending on how you pronounce it. But he's got clever arguments, but their only intention, their only place in the argument is to deceive. That's their only point. So that's sophistry.
Exactly. Well, don't we consider Rumpus to be like the tip of the spear of the anti-flat earthers? So that's exactly what they do, and that's what the others try to do as well. They're just not as good at it.
No, not necessarily. So with Rumpus, I actually defined him or formally classified him as a globe defender in the true sense of the word. Yeah, he had all his ducks in a row and he knew how to use all of the interrogation tactics. But it doesn't necessarily mean that he's an anti-flat earther, right up until the point that he started lying about positions he formerly held in respect to the geometric horizon, how it was physically obscuring parts of the Isle of Man, and how the geometry with tangents was utilised to claim that. Now, as soon as he started lying about that, he became an anti-flat earther. Now, he's obviously a fairly well-known character in the arena, so I've got to have a justifiable reason to say, no, I don't want you here anymore. And overt lies, where I can literally quote him, it's refracted because of its position with respect to the horizon, and then his pictures of geometry with tangent points, flies in the face of refracted horizons. As soon as you get to the point where he's no longer just double-speaking his way around it, we do see the geometric horizon, we do. That is only half a step away from just overtly lying about it. No, I never claimed we saw the geometric horizon. Oh, really? What about all these times that I can throw up debate after debate after debate after debate with your own maths that you've used, with your own tangent that you've drawn? That's just a lie. So at that point he becomes an anti-flat earther, but up until that point I would have actually classified him as a devout globe believer, maybe trying to join the priesthood or something. I don't know, he's trying to impress somebody with it, or he's employed to do so, or whatever his motive is, I don't care. But that wouldn't necessarily put him in anti-flat earth until recently. Arwin.
Right, I agree with that. I'm not trying to like discontort those types of designations. I just was having a bit of a problem with the morosophy, that thing, because it is still a sophist. Like even when they fail, it's still sophistry. It's just really bad sophistry, and it only works for the most deluded, eager to believe numpties at that point, including himself.
Sure.
Right? But it's still effectively the technical side of it is still sophistry. See?
Yeah. Okay, I agree.
And
yeah, well, in the arena we're dealing with, yes, the parallels are always there, and by comparison to the examples we used earlier, it would be the person that's actually trying to convince you unicorns are real with his expertise in unicorn anatomy. Well, that would be your sophist, right? In other words, he's got really good biological arguments for why they're real.
Well,
Right.
according to the mainstream, someone who's a flat earther would be considered a morosopher.
Yeah, that's how
We
we're
are the
painted.
morosophers according to them. Yep.
Yeah, they don't want people to realise that they're under the misapprehension of being governed mentally in their worldview by a philosophy that's been reified. And anybody who challenge that, it's far easier to take the Hillary Clinton approach and just accuse your enemy of the very thing you're doing. Well, look at them. What else? That's why it's often positioned that we should be in the positive position in debate. We'll prove the Earth's flat. Whoa, whoa, whoa. People are building on it flat, people are navigating it flat, people are flying over it flat, it's considered flat, and yet that's suddenly taken as the extraordinary claim I need to prove in the positive, while you defend the standard begging the question position on the other side of the fence against flat Earth. It's like, no, the Earth is obviously, observably, measurably and navigatably flat. So that's not an outrageous claim to make. To say that there's people hanging off the bottom of my position antipode from where I am is absolutely the outrageous claim and needs to be the positive position asserted in debate. But it loses real fast, right? We all know that. So what's the best way to have it? We'll have it so that this is never the position that's being fought for in the positive, just assumed to be true, assumed to not be an extraordinary claim. Well, we all know it's obvious that we've got antipodal positioning with people below me in Australia. Obviously. It's not extraordinary to say that. It's like, yeah, it is. But I've got to defend the nature of everyone's existence when everyone wakes up in the morning, walks out and experiences a flat plane. And in no way or any inference at any time in their life do they ever get to say, yeah, I'm experiencing a curved surface beneath my feet. And when you look for it and don't see it, they'll tell you why you don't see it. But yet that's still got to be affirmed as the extraordinary claim. It's an absolute outrage. It's not extraordinary to say the Earth is flat, because it is. That's how we take in the world.
All right, I'll take it. I just looked up morosoph, basically, and it says a learning fool. But if they're learning, that means they're still trying to put things together. Well, that would make anti-flat earthers not morosophists, because they know at that point they're lying and they're contradicting the original claims, etc. So they're deceiving. You can't be a morosophist and a liar at the same time.
No, a morosophist would, I think, believe wholeheartedly, empowered by the depth of knowledge that they have in the subject, that subject was true.
But then it would apply to ballers, not to anti-flat earthers.
Yes.
Yes.
Exactly.
Exactly correct. So it would apply to ballers, but you can't have a I can't say the word. What's the word again?
Morosophist.
A morosophist sophist doesn't exist because it's an oxymoron. Because one actually believes that you're stating the truth when you talk about unicorn anatomy or heliocentrism in this example. And the person who's a sophist is actually going out of their way to deceive you.
Is it morosophist or morosopher?
Morosopher. Could both be. But it's
good. I love a new word. Excellent, Adam. Kudos.
Well, shout out to Betty. She claims it's a Dutch word. Her and John were arguing whether. But yeah, I'd never heard of it before as well. But its applicableness has 2 shows now. But it does seem to fit very well. I said also, it has an end times feel to it to me. Foolish wise ones is the description towards the end, isn't it? The wise will be foolish and converse as well. So Yeah, I'll see how many times I can crowbar it into a sentence now. Morosophy.
See how many people ask you when they don't know what it is, or just brush past it like they do. Cool. Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
Well, the stars are spinning above us. That could be an
That's
indication that the Earth is spinning.
Axial rotation. Spinning about an axis?
Yeah, you're going to need the R for that.
It's a 0 divided by 1 amount of reference frames.
You're going to need at least one of the 5 senses to pick that up, and none of it works.
You're going to need at least one of the 5 senses to notice. Yeah, I'd agree with that. You'd notice. If we were spinning and stuff, we'd definitely notice that.
But as a matter of fact, I'll put the power of all 5 of my senses.
Yeah, but Eli,
right now, I'll listen real hard. I'll sniff it. I might put my tongue to it. I'll feel it. You know, I'll look at it. Everything that I need to do to involve all 5 senses. But maybe a little 6th sense action. I still don't detect any movement whatsoever.
Right, I've said it before, and I'm going to say it right now. This is not a dating site.
But the morosopher has 7 senses, so that's how they know.
If we use just the sense that we have of vision, what does that sense tell us? It tells us that the stars are moving above us. So we've got one sense telling us that it's not us, and we can see and observe that it's them that's moving. So why would we ignore that sense?
Well, the Einstein reason is because you wouldn't be able to tell a difference if it wasn't you moving versus if it was. I mean, they'd basically give you the same effect with those star movements. That's his argument.
And why would you use your senses today when we have ring laser gyros?
Well, ring laser gyros are interesting because I use them in the positive as a hostile witness for anti-flat earthers who try and deny that which we don't actually observe. So the ring laser gyroscope is claimed to show the effect of Coriolis deflection to the tune of 15 degrees an hour as Earth rotates under the fixed frame of the fibre optic or ring laser gyroscopes. Well, if the Earth's rotating underneath a fibre optic or ring laser gyroscope at 15 degrees an hour, that's a Coriolis deflection. That means Earth's rotating underneath as a non-inertial spinning reference frame to cause this not actual deflection in the gyro. So the cage is moving around the fixed frame because Earth's turning beneath it. Well, if that is the case, then Earth's turning beneath footballs, bullets, heavy artillery fire, aeroplanes, helicopters, drones, you if you jump up and down, and you'd notice that. So to assert that Earth's turning underneath here, you can see it in a gyro, you're like, well, we'd see that in flight times being reduced. Charlotte, North Carolina to Los Angeles would only take about an hour and a half if Earth was turning underneath it for us to observe the globe's claim of deflection from the ground in the aeroplane as we turn beneath it. So to summarise, Earth is claimed to show this drift that the gyro is supposed to be affirming, but that drift is supposed to be observed as things that are above you, like aeroplanes, take a curved path because you turn beneath them. So the claim is, you're turning beneath aeroplanes. Earth turns beneath aeroplanes, you say? No, because that would shorten flight times, and it doesn't. Shout out to Retro Bill, who says, fact of the day, one of the suburbs of St. Louis is called Baldwin, Missouri. Thank you very much for the super chat. Your Baldwin's really grateful to know that. No comment from Arwin, I'm afraid, Retro Bill. Thank you for the super chat all the same. So, axial rotation. Anybody at all? Should we move on?
No axial rotation.
Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
It's over there.
Oh, you're back for that?
I just got back. I was doing my laundry.
Okay, don't tell him.
You're gonna need a radius for that.
Hey, housekeeping, you know.
Yeah,
Reminded me.
housekeeping. Any evidence the distance to the sun? It's over there. Isn't really a distance.
Yes,
How can
it
you
is.
even find out what it is?
Hold
It's
on.
3 AU away.
I wants to derive his AU value from the original AU value and times it by 3. Go ahead, Darwin.
Well, the 3 is just to kind of divide it up virtually because it's just an apparent distance away, right? So it is 3 1/3 apparent distances away.
I can confirm that maths is correct. An Arwinian unit is 1/3 of an astronomical unit. So,
Very confusing to me.
So it must be true.
Well, there's other Arwinian units in circulation. You know, one Arwinian unit is simultaneously, and you can't disagree or contest this in any way either. It just happens to be the amount of hay unicorns eat in Narnia. Now, that Arwinian unit, when it's described as a distance to the sun, 3 of them for hours, in a heliocentric model derivation, it's confusing to me. You know, because there's also simultaneously, like I say, Arwinian units of hay, one thereof will feed a unicorn for 1 day. Well, you know.
Well, only if those unicorns are actually apparent distances away and not actual, because that's what it's really about. It's about giving a unit of measure of an apparent non-actual, non-Euclidean distance, which is a concept, by the way.
Now I know why you fought against the word morosophy so heartily.
You just don't understand, 10th.
Yeah, you don't understand. There's a lot of unicorn experts out there, 10th, just because you're not one of them.
Well, Adams asked the question, how can we know what the sun is, right? And we all know the globe claim, because they cling on to the spectroscopy claim that we've identified helium, helios. That's how we get helios, through spectroscopy of the sun's rays.
Yeah,
so that's how we know, Adam.
Yeah, we're going to need R for that.
Yeah, as soon as you're going to suggest some actual distance, you will need R. That's why I made the Arwinian units, so you don't necessarily need them. You're not going to be presented with any actual useful information, but at least you can define a conception, right?
Check it out. Arwin adds an extra sandwich layer and says that you don't need R because of it. What an outrage. It's derived from heliocentric AU.
No.
You're going to need R to have the Arwinian unit anyway.
No, it's not that
Rumpusing
AU.
begins. Check it out.
It's a Arwinian unit. It's a measurement of apparent distance, right?
See, it's apparently apparently it's this far from here to the sun, right? But that's 3 AUs. Now,
Right.
they are the same distance, an AU and an Arwinian unit, but there's no definition to an Arwinian unit, but it is equivalent to 3. 3 of them are equivalent to 1 astronomical.
No. The distance. Oh wait, is that the astronomical unit?
Yeah.
Is that the supposed actual distance to the sun?
One apparent astronomical unit. They're equivalent.
Yeah, but that's cheating. No, it is only an apparent distance unit. So you could say, okay, 3 is arbitrary, decided it's 3 Arwinian units away from the sun, the apparent distance to that. And let's just say it's 1 Arwinian unit away to a rainbow, right? That's another apparent distance.
I'll let him have it.
Bold claim.
Fine.
That
You can have
means
it.
the sun's 3 times further than a rainbow.
That's correct.
Apparently so.
Apparently. No, let's get this clear, just for summary's sake. 1 Arwinian unit is the distance to a rainbow. 3 Arwinian units is the distance to the sun. Am I correct, Darwin?
Yes, that's correct.
Perfect. Glad we all got that
Or
clear.
at least it appears.
What was that word again,
way.
Adam? Morosophy?
Yeah, totally morosophic, isn't it? The knowledge and detail. The detail would require Arwin to believe it, because foundationally the quality and detail he provides means he believes it.
Let's establish
Believe
if this
what?
is sophistry or morosophy.
We're talking about apparent distances. I make no claims about actual distances. This is just like the conclusion. Like, yeah, it appears to be at a distance, but it's not actually at a distance because it doesn't have any Euclidean position. So how do we deal with it? Well, we define apparent distances, right? Just like the Coriolis force is not actually a force. Well, they still made the definition for it, right?
Okay, but just so we're clear, Arwinian units have now changed their definition, because formerly they were derived from standard AU, and you know it. But now we've got a redefinition, or a redefining, there we go, of an AU Arwinian unit. That would be to say that it formerly was derived from heliocentric rhetoric, needing R, but now it's not. Now it's derived from rainbows. So there you go. Happy days.
No, you're incorrect though, because it wasn't based on the astronomical unit. It was inspired by the astronomical unit.
Whatever. Just weasel. See, that's the difference between being a liar and being a scummy, weaselly weasel, right? That sentence is intellectual dishonesty as opposed to outright lying. It's the, we do have a geometric horizon. Well, we don't have a geometric. Well, we do have it. That is weaselly scummy. That's what Arwin's doing, right? Not lying, but not far off.
What?
You're saying it was inspired by the R-based heliocentric unit. Well, I've not got a short memory, Aaron. I'm very good at remembering what people have said about specific things. In this instance, where AU Arwin... I can't believe I'm getting annoyed about this.
Well, originally the AU was brought up on the table for lack of better approach. And then I just out of nowhere, I was inspired. I didn't say I was inspired, but I was. And I said, no, it's Arwinian units. So I defined it. I conjured up this new way of measuring an apparent distance out of nothing, right? It was never based on the actual astronomical unit. It just sounds the exact same way because it's also AU.
Yeah, it was. Do you need me to go back and dig out the episode where you specifically say that? Don't sigh like you know, like you think you know what's going on, or you're going to obfuscate away from it.
Now, you might be, I might have said it, but that would have been a mistake. I apologize.
Yeah, you see what I mean, right? For anyone watching that goes, you get angry with these people. I was playing too much to character at the moment, right? When you people out there say you get too angry, it's like, no, when you're dealing with people of this nature, Arwin knows, he's playing along, but I was doing brilliantly not to laugh, to be fair. But I know what's going on. And when somebody who's not Arwin does this and just overtly lies about something potentially they've said 25 seconds ago. Now, if you as a human can tolerate that to the point where it doesn't frustrate you, then you are a saint. So just, you know, for those of you who are like, yeah, this would be better served if you didn't get so aggressive with them. It's like, you have a go. See how you get on when they overtly lie to you.
Right, if you don't, they'll just walk right over you.
Cast doubt. You know, when they've overtly lied to you about something that you thought you got pegged, potentially even got a concession for, and then even 30 seconds later they're like, no, that wasn't a concession. No, I'm still going to hold true to the thing you just thought you defeated. And suddenly you're into, what? Questioning whether or not you've actually achieved what you've just achieved. But that's how their tactics have to be employed. You wouldn't need any of that if the Earth was a sphere. You'd just be like, yeah, obviously, here's the curve. There you go. There's it being measured. You know, that's how it'd be. It would be like, it really is stupid to assume that it isn't because you just measure it. Everyone knows it because everyone has to deal with it. Nobody has to deal with it, so they excuse away why you don't have to deal with it, but yet it's expected to be understood and tolerated that that is the case. It's like, no, it's definitely back to what I said earlier. It's an outrageous claim to say we're standing on a sphere. It really is. It makes me smile so much to know how well that programming has sunk into the masses, because they're completely and blissfully unaware of that fact, that it is delightfully humorous to some people to even consider someone in Australia for me in the UK to be antipodal from my position. It's so beyond batshit insane that it makes me smile. But for most people, that is just, well, no, obviously we already know that is the case. It's like you don't appreciate it as an outrageous claim to make. No, well, because I understood it from day one when I was told anything by anybody ever. So therefore it must be true. Few shout-outs to Retro Bill, who says, Arwin, fact of the day, #2. Arwin Records was an American label that operated in the late 1950s to the mid-1960s. Well, what would you know, Retro Bill? I would definitely think that's worth giving me $5 for. Thank you very much indeed for the super chat. Also, Godzilla37, he says, here's my Arwinian units to help reify the apparent unicorn into a real rainbow. Units well spent, I think. Thank you very much indeed. I like the on-topic super chats. Really good. Thank you very much, Godzilla, and thank you very much, Retro Bill.
Did you catch the first one, Owen, or did you miss that first ball?
No. I got it. Yeah. I responded in chat. Now Retro Bill says in regular chat, I missed the fact there is a county in Missouri called Baldwin. God.
I noticed in your chat today that they'd started another one, a Darwinian, spelt with a W, I-J-N.
Yeah, and not forgetting the ever popular Aristarquin.
Oh God. I just white noised that all away. Please don't bring it back.
There was a time when I was getting trolled by this one guy. I'm sure you'll you'll remember, but probably won't want to utter. And after the fact they made up, it was all right, and I'm sure they went off into the cloudy Neverlands, skipping together, holding hands afterwards. Anyway, at the time that they weren't friends, the guy just kept coming back with more and more socks that had various win names attached. So they became known fondly as the Wins. Oh, we've got the Wins in. Because it would be Aristarquin, Sockwin, and so on and so forth. And I thought it was quite amusing. I think the guy's name was Jason. Is it Jason McCormack?
Yeah. No, we're all right. He's even allowed back in my chat as long as he doesn't use the specific symbol. And then I'm fine. But yeah, I haven't seen the wind socks in a while. To be fair, I understand how that is funny. It's just that for me, it wasn't. I couldn't really. It was just really annoying. Sure. Also because everybody thought it was funny, right? I get it.
It is funny, but you should just take it as what it is, exceptionally flattering. Somebody's out there.
Yeah.
And you're what they're holding high as a... Not as a point of ridicule, really, because if you think of it, what is he doing? He's crediting you with stuff. Ragewin was a great one. You know what I mean? It's very flattering to me, Arwin. I would take it as. I wouldn't take it as an insult. You're out there. That shows you're making a mark as a YouTuber. There's somebody out there spending part of his day and great intellectual effort to come up with these things to get your attention, my friend.
They're still doing it out there, but not this guy, no more wind socks. It's just that at the time, if it would have happened right now, I'd probably be like, oh yeah, sure. But back then I was still like very nervous about YouTube and even Flat Earth. And I don't know, I've had like a tough time right in that period, and I just couldn't really enjoy it. I just kind of wanted to be left alone. Now, if it would have not happened back then, but it would happen now, I wouldn't really mind that much. But back then, it was really just like a tick. Wouldn't get off to me.
It's a fan.
The fact that it bothers you sort of makes it a little bit more funny, actually.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
But that's what bullies get off on. So essentially, the fact that everyone around you finds it funny and you don't, it's like the bully's way of sticking it between your ribs, because there's nobody that you can turn to that's going to say, yeah, he's a prick, isn't he? Should really leave you alone. He's bullying you. They're going to say, oh, come on, it's really funny. You're just being a... And suddenly the people around you are bloody bullying you as well. Well, that's totally unreasonable. And in this instance, that's the purpose for this particular dude. But Adam's still right. The guy's a fan. He wants to be on your side. He's trying to get your attention. Now, that's a tightrope. It's a bit like love and hate. You can fall off the other side and suddenly become a stalker, or you can fall off the opposite side and suddenly become someone's best mate and ally when you started off trolling them. But that's that's for a different topic, because it's along the lines of fandom, if you will, people who want to be watching you or associated with you or whatever. Well, I was in a chat the other day, I think it was Bev's chat, with shills versus shills. Now, he can't be seen on my chat, and I did actually go to some effort, which I did discuss in the pre-show, to try and figure out why that is, and whether or not I've made any inroads in that, I don't know, on my Google support box. Is this problem resolved? No. But anyway, I did go to some efforts to sort out an issue with this guy that he had in terms of my live stream chat. Nonetheless, he was telling me about something that, I forget who he was talking about. It was either Cats or Ranty or Dan or one of those people. And I said to him, oh, so you're let's say it was Ranty. You're a Ranty fan? He was like, what do you mean I'm a Ranty fan? No, I'm not. He got quite, bullshit with me, if you know what bullshit means. Didn't like what I was saying. What do you mean I'm a fan? I was like, well, you watch him. That doesn't mean I'm a fan. Although I didn't type this. I said, no, I just mean you watch him. That was my reply to him. But I did mean the word I used. Because if you're watching somebody and you hate them, then you love to hate them because you're watching them. That makes you a fan. No, don't care if you want to say, well, no, I'm just gathering up what they're doing wrong. It's like, why? If you don't like them, the best thing you can do is remove them from your life. If this is a subscription circumstance, just unsubscribe. It's really easy. And then if they get thrown up in your homepage, just don't watch them. Just don't waste your time with them. It's really easy.
When you don't like something.
Right. Talking about which, I'm back to 1992 subscribers, so it happened again.
So you lost 8 subscribers?
Yep.
Oh, that happens whenever you get near a big figure. So there's going to be a load of dicks that will subscribe when you're, 100 off getting to a decent number. And then the moment you hit it, they'll just unsubscribe just so they can sit and snigger. Ha ha ha! Did you celebrate about having 2,000? Ha ha ha! It's just dick behaviour. Now, again, that particular bit, I've got so used to it happening that it really just think, okay, well, in 2 or 3 days, when that dip resolves itself with the natural growth of the channel, you'll just get those 8 subscribers back in whatever period you'd have grown naturally anyway. It's like, there'll have been a spurt of growth at some point that you were like happy about, that was just those same dick trolls that just wanted to unsubscribe the moment you hit a decent number.
Yeah, that's what I suspected. But
it's
it might take like a month before I get there again.
Talking about YouTube and admin and stuff. This is terrible. My God,
sorry.
The standards have
Let's get back to the Arwinian units again.
Oh, that's why. This is definitely a step up from that. Talking about subscribers and stuff. Anyway, back to my point about shills versus shills, was that, if you're watching somebody, you're a fan. It doesn't matter if you're a Globe believer who absolutely hates my guts. If you're sat watching me, you're a fan of mine. I love it. I shout out to all my fans. Hey, Alwyn, do you want to shout out your fans?
Yeah, I still got a lot of fans.
For years, I could not stand Muhammad Ali. And then I realized when he lost, I actually felt bad. So I guess you're right. I was actually an Ali fan. But I could have sworn I hated him for all those years.
Exactly.
But you were invested, weren't you? You had an investment in whether he won or he lost. So it might be a perverse fan, but you're still interested, aren't you? You're still subscribed to Ali or all these trolls. They're still subscribed to Arwin.
Right.
The weird thing was, I used to root for him and watch it to see him get a beating because he had such a big mouth. And then when he lost, I was kind of sad. I rooted for him in the rematch.
Yeah, of course. There's certain people that chased Patricia Steer out of this arena, and the moment she was gone, they were gutted. Because what did they have to moan about? And suddenly they had to stand back and reflect on the fact that, well, actually, I spent quite a considerable amount of time watching that material, moaning about it, and slagging her off to the point where she buggered off, bullying her, basically. Well, in that instance, you think, yeah, did you actually do yourself any favours? And in the case of anti-flat earthers, right, the delusional idiots that think they're globe believers, there is a very much symbiotic relationship between us and them. Now, it'd be nice if we were on the receiving end of the promotion they receive. Obviously, as a purely fiscal outlook, I'd be like, yeah, I'll be much better off if I got lots of YouTube promotion right now. Now, that's not going to mean I'm going to change sides for reasons of a financial benefit, because that would be immoral as far as I'm concerned. I couldn't live with myself. You know, that wouldn't make me happy in the slightest. Even the extra ka-ching that comes with being an anti-flat earther. You know, they've got a nice big circle around their name in YouTube algorithmic terms at the moment. But don't kid yourselves if you are one of those anti-flat earthers. Number one, you are our leeches. Yeah, you are parasites to us. Now, you might think that you're actually at the top of that hill with all the absent-minded, globe-believing, delusional, and blissfully ignorant of it globe believers, because you're never going to be that again. That is completely out of your reach. Which means you do sit in this parasitic subcategory that requires us to be here for you to have any relevance whatsoever. Now, I understand that symbiosis. Do I care? No. But it means that I can be completely passive in that regard. Completely reactionary. I don't have to do anything proactive whatsoever for the parasites to come looking for me. Well, just sit here. I don't have to do anything, right? I love it. Because I'm the happy one on the end of this particular symbiotic relationship. You know, I can just flick the slugs off me, or whatever you'd call them, leeches. Yeah? But the leeches, they want to slime their way on their belly back towards me every time. It doesn't matter how abusive I am, if people want to be critical of that as they are at the moment. It's like, yeah, well, they're here by choice. Same goes for the panel. Nobody's any obligation whatsoever to me. None.
Did you know that leeches actually introduce slight amounts of natural aspirin in your blood? That it did have medical applications?
Leeches were used in medicine for years.
Yeah.
It's an anti-clotting agent so that the blood doesn't clot while they're feeding, so it just stops the clotting cascade.
I just had a fan in the chat, Tim Osman.
Yeah, it was quite interesting that we were saying that, and then the comments that were put. I mean, it just shows you, see, fanboys calling you a soy boy, wants your attention, wants Nathan's attention, and projects. Arwen still sucks his thumb. You know.
Yeah, man, on my everyday show for almost 3 years.
Hey, yeah. Look at me, Arwen. Recognize me, Arwen.
Where's your geometric horizon, Tim Osman? The one that doesn't exist yet with your perfect drone footage. It was right there, and you made a claim about it after you disclaimed it existed. How about that?
Nobody claims the horizon is Earth curve. End quote, Tim Osman. Right at the end of yesterday's Quantum Racer live show, Quantum Racer made a really good point that sometimes gets forgotten about here because it never gets covered, or rarely gets covered. And that's to say that what's the actual globe claim got, you know, in its arsenal? What have they really got? They've got claim pictures from a second law of thermodynamics violation. That's what they've really got, isn't it? And I think the reason we very rarely talk about it here is because it's like, I don't want to say protected, but it's like so fragile and so big and prominent that it's best that it's not sort of got arguments and fights around it. You know, best if that particular subject doesn't come up too often places like this. Best to keep it out in the arena where you can talk about, I don't know, the idea of it still being real, the idea of there being maybe moon landings, arguing about, like they did in the 80s, about the shadows. It's like all of those arguments still contain the idea that you can go to the moon and that there's a space and a sky vacuum, and all of that stuff still exists in the argument. But that's all they've got.
What, you mean arguing about the wardrobe? Arguing about time dilation as you go through it, as opposed to the reality that wardrobes don't transport you anywhere.
Well, how do shoes work?
The new Spider-Man movie has that.
Well, how do shoes work in the wardrobe, right? They're not living. And, you know, as you walk through and there's time dilation, does the leather age at a different rate? You could argue about this, you and I, Adam, for at least an hour, right? And at the end of it, we could come to a conclusion. One of us could win, one of us could lose. And we could decide that actually shoe leather's not affected by time dilation as you move through the wardrobe. And that could be a conclusion we drew. And at the end, everyone goes home, the curtains close, people come and sweep up, and everyone leaves the theatres going, yeah, so we live in Narnia then. But now that we are all clear that we live in Narnia, and we know that the shoe leather doesn't age as you go through it, we're all cool, right? And everyone goes, yeah. That's what we're in. Let's argue about whether rockets work in space. Did they work? Let's show a rocket working in a vacuum. Let's argue about the fact that the vacuum chamber is filled with gas that the rocket can now push off. Let's argue all day about this. Let's ignore the fact, as we do so, that if the sky was a vacuum, we'd all be dead. We wouldn't be having this conversation if the sky was a vacuum because the gas would fill it. It would have never achieved gas pressure in the first place. Go ahead, whoever that was.
Now, you can't do that topic because that's the one you have to stay away from. Much safer to discuss things like you're saying, or whether or not a photographic film would work in the vacuum of space. Much better, because the outcome of that argument, it doesn't really matter, because there's always the pre-argument acceptance of the presupposition of the vacuum of space being something that we can transverse. Whilst ever that's your point of argument, because if you're arguing about, like, say, the state of leather in Narnia, you're accepting that you can go through the wardrobe to get to Narnia.
Indeed.
So either side, the paradigm is maintained, isn't it?
Exactly. It's a useful argument to have because win, lose or draw, the fundamental premise that needs to be maintained is that the sky is a vacuum, that we've got an outer space, that is the nature of the heliocentric model, in essence, right? We're moving around the sun in a vacuum. We're traversing it in a presuppositional orbit, it being a vacuum. So long as you're arguing about whether or not the moon had a flag on it that waved in the wind or not, you're not paying attention to the fact that between here and the moon there's nothing containing the gas, so we'd never achieve gas pressure. So the whole story of travelling to that light we call the moon is absolutely absurd because it involves a rocket moving out into an area that the gas we're breathing could fill and would fill by way of natural law and an entropy increase.
They're doing it now, aren't they? It's in the mainstream now, Nathan. There's I don't think we'll be able to go to the moon in 2024 as predicted because, and we're going to have to Elon Musk to help NASA because we're having problems with the spacesuits. I don't think we're going to be able to get them ready. And there's this argument that it's, oh my God. And the argument is based in the possibility that you can go to the moon with a spacesuit to travel through a vacuum. But they're arguing about, why have you lost the technology? Yeah. Why can't you just open up the museum? It's in the case. But the argument isn't about whether or not you can have a vacuum next to pressurized gas with no containment. It's arguing about why we've suddenly lost the technology to be able to have spacesuits and how we need to use private industry to help supplement NASA. So the argument is win-win for the paradigm.
Exactly. And saying, you saying as a fallacy that they can calculate the amount of fuel they use to travel to the moon, therefore Neil deGrasse Tyson's assertion that faking it wouldn't be a possibility. You're like, that's absurd and a fallacy to say just because you've got a calculation for how much it would take to get to the moon doesn't mean you actually went. But let's again ignore the fact that you can't travel out into a region that's a vacuum. Because if you, in a rocket, can travel out there, so can gas that expands in all directions, precisely as we're breathing, at high pressure. If you can go to the moon, so can the gas. And if the area is an area that the gas can fill, that's what gas will do. So we would all be dead if any of this story and narrative was true. But let's worry about how much fuel's been calculated to travel to somewhere that isn't real. Let's worry about how much shoe leather gets worn as you walk through the wardrobe. Yeah? Well, we calculated it, and they hardly wore any of the leather off the bottom of their shoes walking through the wardrobe. We can calculate how much shoe leather was worn. You can't not have a travel destination through a wardrobe if you can calculate how much shoe leather's been worn. I mean, that's how accurate we can get this. It's absurd.
Well, it all goes back to begging the question. That's the only way they can start anything.
I have a quote on begging the question, but it probably should have been done with axial rotation or movement of the Earth.
Go on then. Any evidence of axial rotation, Eli?
No, in fact, I mean, all they're going to do is beg the question right here from John Martin on cosmoquest.org forum, begging the question regarding the Michelson-Morley experiment. So, how to commit a fallacy of begging the question when a conclusion to be demonstrated is assumed into a premise. Number one, an experiment is set up to demonstrate the motion of the Earth through space. 2, a positive result is expected from theory or hypothesis. 3, the experiment produces a null result. 4, the null result has a cause. 5, the cause of the null result is not a stationary Earth because the Earth is moving. 6, the cause of the null result is a moving Earth. Number 7, therefore, an experiment on the moving Earth has demonstrated that C is constant in any inertial reference frame. 8, therefore, C is constant in all reference frames. Line 8 implies a moving Earth is part of the conclusion, yet line 5 merely asserts the Earth is moving. To conclude to line 8, therefore, the constancy of C is invalid according to the fallacy of begging the question. The only way science can conclude to one of special relativity's postulates is to beg the question on the motion of the Earth as shown above. The constancy of C in any inertial reference frame is known from a logical fallacy, as explained above.
Correct, and the logical fallacy is to assume a rotational rate based on an R value. So in order to acquire the assumption of a rotation value, you first have an R value, and that's how it all begins. It always does.
Well, this one's even worse. This is if light path is different, yeah? Well, this is not science, is it? Because listen to what they were saying. The variable was Earth rotation. But go vary that.
Indeed.
Good point.
Skeptic936 says, can't make accurate calculations for moon travel without R. Yeah, it's an orbital value. Thanks for the super chat, Skeptic936. They need R for basically everything. Did we mention that we debunked R?
It's the basis of the fabric of the heliocentric world.
Yeah. R is fundamental to everything heliocentric. That's correct.
The only R
it's
that
fundamental
exists
to building the whole world.
Yeah, as a sphere.
The only R's that exist are mentally held back at people, and well, the distance between the center of a circle, from the inside of the circle to the extent of that circle. Those are the only 2 R's that we've ever really discussed.
Yeah, the radius of a circle, if you're measuring an area of equal altitude versus the presupposed radius to the centre of a spherical Earth that people have reified from philosophy into their world they believe they're standing on. But with that, I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you. Smash the super chat and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley. Stay tuned if you're watching on a Premiering stream, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!
One can, of course, believe anything one likes as long as the consequence of that belief are trivial. But when survival depends on belief, then it matters that belief corresponds to manifest reality. We therefore teach navigators that the stars are fixed to the celestial sphere, which is centered on a fixed earth and around which it rotates in accordance with laws clearly deducible from common sense observation. The sun and moon move across the inner surface of this sphere and hence perforce go around the earth. This means that students of navigation must unlearn a lot of the confused dogma they learned in school. Most of them find this remarkably easy because dogma is as may be, but the real world is as we perceive it to be. If Andrew Hill will look into the Journal of Navigation, he will find that the Earth-centered universe is alive and well, whether his readings of the spectre may suggest. Whatever his readings of the spectre may suggest.
Very nice.
Who was that?
Darcy Pettyhoff, Royal Air Force College. I'll share it in the chat.
Cool, very cool. It's not explicitly stating that the world is flat, but by the same token, he is.
Kind of, sort of, yeah. That's like when people say, "Oh, that's a geocentrist." Well, first of all, no one proved that it was a convex surface. So that whether you believe it's a ball or not, the point is, when you're looking up at the sky, that's what's moving.
Well, you just noticed just in the last week or so, they don't want us to say 90, right? They don't want to hear 90 degrees. Oh, don't say 90 degrees. It has nothing to do with 90 degrees. And yet, zenith distance is 90 degrees. It's all based on 90 degrees. When you hold your sextant to a star above the horizon, what are you marking? And what is the basis for the markings that you're reading off to go to the book with? You're using the horizon as your baseline zero, and you're bringing the star down to the horizon with a double mirror to find the GP of the star. The zenith distance is the GP to you. That's the distance when we calculate. So when you go to the book and you say, where's the GP of the sun? And it says right here, and you draw a circle of equal altitude because you got, say, for example, 50 degrees to it, you're somewhere on that circle. The zenith distance is that radius line to you. That's why you go and do the azimuth for the bearing. So you point to the bearing, and that's where you draw your assumed line of position until you get your actual line of position. When you do a second circle of equal altitude and a third, then you're going to get a fix. And it all has to do with everything above you being your zenith, which is your 90. And they even have a little acronym, ZD, zenith distance. So these people who say has nothing to do with 90 are destroying the whole nautical almanac. Because directly above the observer is a zenith, and the sun is directly above the earth, that's its zenith, and the angles are in between. I've never seen a sextant longitude latitude fall out of 0 to 90. I'd like to see one, if 90 doesn't mean anything.
We need like a meme or a summary of the sextant's argument to share it, maybe at least on Discord, because not a lot of people are using the argument or even understand it. We need to like spread it more.
Every depiction
Well,
of navigation is a meme. Every single one. If you understand the 90-degree angle, that little box that shows you the square.
well, if you look at the ceiling, a ceiling of a room, a flat ceiling, and you pin different stars or pretending stars on the ceiling, and you drop a line, a plumb line from every single one of them down to the floor, now you can start doing your 90-degree angles, and you will notice that every single one of those zenith lines, they are parallel. They have to. That's how it works on the flat plane.
Well said, but that's the only way it can work, period, because you're using a sextant and you need a baseline. That's your zero. They even say it. You have to do dip correction. If you're 10 foot on top of a sailboat and you're a 6 foot man, you got to minus that 16 feet. Get your eyes on the top of the water, because to get an accurate reading, you have to have the zero baseline. They're even telling you the Earth is flat there. But of course, the ballers have to beg the question here and say, well, we are using a zero baseline. We have a small tangent line where at one point it meets the surface of a sphere, and there's our little local horizon. Well, the problem you have with that is you have to correlate that to what you're actually doing on the sphere, begging the question that the reading is actually coming from the center of the sphere, a central angle where two lines can meet to form an angle, a vertex, a corner. But you can never do that on the surface. So we're back to, how does the sextant work? How is it being used? It's being used on the surface. Well, you've just admitted that you can't have a vertex or a corner without two straight lines meeting in the center of a presupposed globe, but the sextant is being used on the surface of this globe, which is curved, but it's working, which means the surface is flat, but you've got to say it's not actually from there we take the measurement, we're actually taking it from the center of the sphere. Then you open up another can of worms, because that's not how it's done. And the other can of worm is the sun rays have to come in parallel, and we have divergent sun rays. So you lose your corresponding angle that you need at the surface to correspond to the one at the center. That doesn't exist because it's not done that way. They lose every way because it's all begging the question.
What also would be great, I mean, this is wishful thinking. Like this year was the year of the sextant. Maybe next year can be the year of the satellite. I mean, if we can prove satellite triliteration, like triangulation, is flawed somehow, or proves a flat Earth, that'll be great.
No, there's no practical use in that like there is with the sextant. But that's just my, sorry.
We already use the GP, which is the geographical position. They don't need to add satellite to it. That's exactly what the sextant does, the GP of a star.
My only question is, well, how come, what happens at, like, for instance, on the A line, going into Queens from Brooklyn, there's a point at which you go under the water and you no longer have reception. And it's the exact same point every day. Has been since I was a child going to school. Cutting school, taking that hour-long train ride there and back. Phone service always went dead. What's up with the satellites? Well, that's if you assume that we get all of this. That's assuming we're using satellites, but we're just using towers.
Right.
So, in my estimation, there's a tower somewhere. Maybe in Brooklyn or somewhere close by. And then as I travel away from it, I lose connection. And then on the other side of the water, in Far Rockaway, Queens, is another tower that I eventually am able to connect to. So,
yeah.
Well, that's not how it's claimed to work, actually. Satellites, that is. I mean, satellites send a timestamp, an identifier of which satellite, and sends an XYZ coordinate of that satellite. And they use the speed of light, basically, to calculate the position using trilateration, distances rather than angles like the sextant.
And where are these satellites supposedly sending this information from?
Oh, in
away?
Narnia.
Okay, yeah.
Other, let 10th man have his blood. The guy's on our side.
No, I'm just asking the question. Where are these satellites assumed to be sending this data from? Space, outer space, vacuum next to gas pressure that doesn't
Sky
exist.
vacuum, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So then there must be something else then. It must be within the air that we breathe. That's something, if from high up is used to give us data, it's still within the air, not some violation of space next to air pressure. So yeah, you can have floating devices that ping off of things and do things and give an exact position. Because those satellites for trilateration need a GP just as well as a star, do they not?
That's correct.
Yeah, all right. So fine, they got a GP. They're hanging somewhere in the air by some means, whether helium balloon or Google was working on one that could stay on solar panels on the wings of a little drone. Well, that's not so little, but for 5 years, it can just fly the friendly skies. Why do they need to go into an outer space violation to do it when Google already has the technology?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be personally asking that. I mean, or claiming how it potentially might work either. You know, once you get to the point where some claimants saying, well, satellites do that, and you say, where are they? It's their claim. They're saying the satellites do this. As soon as you debunk where they say they've got their claim from, that's the end, really. You don't have to offer anything up for them, 10th man.
No, I understand, but as you research technology that's being shown on the internet through different science YouTube channels, technology channels, it's easily done by this means, but they want you to think it's somewhere in the violation rather than this means. So yeah, I don't have to offer it. I mean, it's already dead. There's no outer space. So, well, how else are we getting it? Well, go do research. There's lots of means.
Hey, Brian.
Hey, whatever they're using satellites for, would you imagine that on any Earth, NASA would be able to use a stationary flat plane for their satellites?
Don't understand the phrasing of your question.
NASA using satellites, do you think there would ever be a reason for them to say, well, we can utilize this assuming a flat plane?
Okay. NASA, being the heliocentric frontmen that they are, would have to be asserting that Earth's a sphere beneath your feet because that's the paradigm they're claimed to be working with. So no, they're never going to be declaring that you need to operate in any way on a flat plane because they're saying Earth's not a flat plane.
Brilliant. Can you see what I just posted in there? Do you see what I just whatever? I don't even know what this means, to be honest. But I'm like a kid with the buzzsaw, as you put it, like when Chemo went running around with the black swan. So I'm just getting citations from everywhere. So this right here is from NASA, right? And it says a comparative study of spherical and flat Earth geopotential modeling at satellite elevations. So again, I don't know what this means, so whatever. But I do know that whatever it is, within their rhetoric, they say, flat Earth model is okay. So here goes. Flat Earth and spherical Earth geopotential modeling of crustal anomaly sources at satellite elevations are compared by computing gravity and scalar magnetic anomalies perpendicular to the strike of variably dimensioned rectangular prisms at altitudes of 150, 300, and 450 kilometers. Results indicate that the error caused by the flat Earth approximation is less than 10% in most geometric conditions. Generally, error increases with larger and wider anomaly sources at higher altitudes. For more crustal source modeling applications at conventional satellite altitudes, flat Earth modeling can be justified and is numerically efficient. NASA.gov.
Sounds a lot like Andrew Thomas Young saying all his refraction calculations came from a plane, and then he had to take geometric considerations to make it work on the globe.
Can you see the screen, guys? Just before we move on, the talk of Satelloons and stuff. I think it's beyond the wit of man. I think this says in 2001, the US Army Space Missile Defense Command began to explore the concept of a lighter than air high altitude airship that could operate for extended periods at an altitude of 65,000 feet. I won't go on too much, but a number of tests were conducted to validate the feasibility of the product. The HAA has to date not been built, apparently, but I don't think it's in if you can put things up there and they stay up there that long, that technology is not being used and isn't a plausible explanation for some satellite signal.
But why are you making it? I mean, it's the same thing to Tenth, and I applaud you for digging this out, and I've got it up on the screen. But is it part of a claim you're making, Adam? I mean, why are you offering this up?
I think it's probably more just curiosity, and just to throw out there that these things are feasible. But it's not really to defend a claim or make a claim. It's probably just more the geek in you, if you know what I mean. So I don't think I'd bring this up if we had a baller on the panel as any form of defense or rebuttal to satellites. But it's just interesting to note stuff out there that's perfectly plausible and would possibly do the job of.
It's no different than an airplane talking to the tower when it's high up in the sky. That's all it is. And that's within the air that we breathe, the atmoplane. The minute they say satellite and we say, where are they? They're going to say space, and then we're done with them. It's over. It's not there. Well, then well, just like an airplane. Go research it. How do airplane pilots talk to towers when they're high up?
I could be wrong, but you mentioned that satellites use a GP, right? But I don't think that's what they actually use. I think they just the ground position measures the distance using the speed of light. It just utilizes the distance, the XYZ position, and calculates how far it is according to the speed of light. They don't use a GP.
The speed of light, that is.
Yeah, they do. The supposed satellite, for you to line up your satellite dish to it, for the alignment process is still that same sextant use, yeah? So for you to line it up, it will have a relative ground position, and that's what you line it up to, its relative angle for the ground position that it would have. It's a geostation one, it will have a ground position, and that's what you use to. You don't optically look at it, do you? You align it to an angle that will be exactly the same way that the sextant works out the angle to achieve.
Actually, the difference between triangulation and trilateration is the fact that trilateration doesn't use angles, it uses distances. Now, I get the point you're trying to make with pointing a satellite at an angle.
Yeah.
But for a GPS to work, it uses 3 or more satellites by the method of trilateration, which uses distances rather than angles.
No, you're mistaken there, Nathan. In Master B, I'm going to post a picture right now. Please show it. This is exactly what Adam is saying. It should be coming. It should be there right now. You see it?
I think we're conflating two different things, because that's correct as well. It's the Brian will know this best if he's about, but it's the ping, isn't it? With those, that's fine. That ping's each ping's drawing a similar circle to the way Tenth does with his sextant, isn't it? And that's why you get the precision. But Brian, are you there? you know.
No, hang on. Go to the picture. Go to the picture.
I need time to go first.
Oh, it hasn't come through.
Presenting. Let me shut this
Oh,
up.
it has. It's just come through. Okay, it's up.
Yeah. What do you see there? 3 circles of equal altitude. The satellites are the center, GP, and there's your fix. It's the same thing. I'll send another one.
Okie dokie.
Problem is I'm in Discord, so I can't see what you guys are posting.
I'll grab them for you. Give me a second.
Yeah, GPS just uses microwave signals. And there is a timing using what they call the two-way speed of light, but there is no two-way speed of light. There's no one-way speed measurement, so it would be an impossibility to have a two-way speed of measurement. But they do use a particular agreed-upon convention. But that convention could change. It wouldn't have to be 671 million miles per hour. There wouldn't like that's you can't measure that kind of a distance, that kind of a speed. So you could change that. It's just a convention that's agreed upon. But trilateration is just 4, normally 4, and can be more microwave signals. And often you won't get GPS. Even the survivor man, Les Stroud, is it? He was showing. He was in this. I think it was in somewhere in Macedonia. No, it was somewhere very remote anyway. But he was in somewhere very remote. I think it was journalism or something brought out a short video on him recently, or Taboo Conspiracy, where he was in a remote place sitting on this kind of beach area with trees behind him, and he had 3 or 4 of these big satellite, what they call satellite phones and receivers and different things. And he said the best he did that day is he sent the text like an hour previous, and the text didn't even go through yet. There's no signal from anything. So, I mean, there's no way that he could have all this equipment. And he said, at the moment, if I remember correctly, it's not verbatim, but he was saying basically he's carrying around all this weight with him, and it's of no use to him. He can't make any communications with it. And he wasn't in somewhere remote, but he wasn't out in the center of the Pacific Ocean, and he wasn't in the middle of the Sahara Desert. So he was in a remote location, though. But the thing about it is that, like, if we had a situation where we have things in the sky that are always there, there's no way he who should be in that position. He should always have signal. You should never not be able to have GPS signal, but you will always have GPS signal. Let's just say in New York City, that will always be the case.
Right. To a satellite in their paradigm, then the middle of the Gobi Desert isn't remote. It's a place of easy access with no big buildings blocking signal. It's somewhere you've got clear line of sight. It's not remote like we're experiencing it. As far as the satellite signal, there should be no issue if it's set up the way they claim.
Well, yeah, there shouldn't be any issue. And the thing about it is that we've all heard it from our opposition, is that you can get satellite signal anywhere. But that's just a claim that they've never actually looked into. It's not true. You can't get it anywhere. You won't get it off out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. You don't get it, out in those positions. You can get signal, but you have to have a big enough ship with a big enough radar or whatever, or big enough antennas and stuff like that. It is maybe possible to get it, but the average GPS phone is not going to get it.
I could give you a backstory for your claim, because it's true. When I follow the yachting channels that I do, the bigger ships, the yachts, the $150 million, $200 million, even more expensive yachts, the owners, filthy rich, obviously, but the crew takes YouTube videos and posts it. And they say, all right, here's a chance for us to use the internet somewhere in the ocean, far away from land. $30,000 to $50,000 is the fee just to use it. Now, satellite phone in the hands of an average seaman, is that going to happen? No.
No, I mean, the thing about it is I think the people don't realise the amount of places you won't get GPS signal, and as Adam said, you should get it easy somewhere like the desert. There's nothing blocking anything. There's nothing blocking a microwave signal to there. All you'd have to deal, I don't know, all you'd have to deal with the heat, if that would affect the microwave signal a bit. But there's nothing blocking it, so you should get it. But you don't. You don't get GPS to all these places. But you get GPS in New York City all the time. What people don't realise as well is that signals are bounced off everything. So a ship will bounce a signal off a plane to get it to another ship. And, things like that, bounce it from ship to ship. Signal will bounce in any direction that you need it. And there's I looked at a program where there's a military program, US military program, where they're coming up at, they're claiming they're coming up at it now, but I'm saying they've just been using it for years, where they're just using every signal and any signal to bounce off of anything. I mean, they'll find my exact location and they'll bounce it. I'm in a car at the moment. They'll bounce it off of other cars going past me and their phones and their radios and everything. It's just a signal. The microwave signal is the most direct because it's one step away from a laser. The original name for a laser was a maser, and the M stood for microwave. So a microwave signal is only one step away from a laser, basically. So that's so it's a direct, straight line of sight type of a thing. But I mean, if you've got a receiver that will receive a microwave signal, but it will receive other signals, why just only receive a microwave signal? That makes no sense when you should be receiving all signals. I just the whole situation. It's easy to prove to people in New York that they have GPS because it's easy to get a signal there. But how do you prove it to them out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean or the middle of the desert?
Actually, right in the middle of New York City, I would say Park Avenue, range anywhere between Park Avenue and 3rd Avenue, ranging from 55th down to 50th. It's a complete dead zone. I've had AT&T, I've had T-Mobile, I've had one other service that I can't remember right now. And each one of them, it's a dead zone there.
Sure, because it's all
maybe
high-rises.
Because of the buildings.
It's all high-rise buildings, though, isn't it?
Well, the thing about that is the whole city is that, but I'm not in a dead zone everywhere else, just that one specific location.
Is that near Wall Street?
No. As a matter of fact, there are less high-rise buildings in this area, as a matter of fact. I'll take some pictures just for interest's sake.
Well, that would also make sense that maybe you're getting a better signal when there is more high-rise buildings. Because there's more things to be bouncing off of. There's more receivers and sender, on within the high-rise buildings or on the high-rise buildings. They say microwaves won't go through concrete and stuff like that. But so there's certain places you should not be able to get a GPS signal, but you can. Now, I'm not talking about your phone. Your phone is not a GPS receiver. I think some of the newer phones do have a GPS receiver, but the average everyday smartphone doesn't have a GPS receiver. So you're not receiving GPS to that. You're receiving the same data, but you're just not receiving it via microwave. You're receiving it via cell towers and TV stations and everything else.
Do you have to be sat with your indicator on? Are you in traffic?
Yeah, I'm actually. I'm gonna have to go on to mute now because I have to drive out of where I am. So I'll get back to you in a few minutes.
Sorry, it took a turn for the worst.
I didn't know if he was sat at the side of the road and just didn't realise that the indicator could be heard when he was sat at the side of the road. But if you're in traffic, obviously you need to tell people where you're going and stuff, which is fair enough.
Such a subtle pun that you just ignored.
I didn't ignore it.
I got it.
I know you got it.
Freaking bionic ear over there. Can't even be sitting at a signal without Nathan picking it up.
A bionic ear. Nathan, do you see the pictures I posted? Is it eerily resembling celestial navigation?
I had it up earlier. Do you want me to put them back on?
Well, you can just scan through them and just give some commentary if you like.
Yeah, I mean, it's achieving the exact same thing. So it's saying your position above satellite 2, satellite 1, and satellite 3 in this image is going to give you a radius from the center out to your position. And then with 3 of them, you can get a fix, which is where you are in relation to where the 3 circles cross. And that's where your position is going to be given to you according to this from the satellites. Well, how is that any different to having a known position that's a star rather than a known position that's a satellite? Well, the answer is it isn't. It's exactly the same.
Yeah, so here we go. The ballers say, oh, the circle equal altitude. We never use that. Really?
Then you get to this one with it on a globe, and it doesn't make any sense because you can't draw out the circles around actual land. You know, when they drop them on in 3D models, right, at least it's sort of skirting around a curved surface, whereas in this one, when you just literally plonk it on with the circles moving out beyond the edge of the sphere, you're like, well, this is beyond absurd now. Next one. You asked for my comments, I'm just giving them as I'm seeing them.
Yeah, go on, it's good.
Showing triangulation with satellites again, it's the same principle, isn't it? It's the same exact method as you do with the stars if you knew their locations at a given time. The trilateration, which is what this the guy was saying, almost exactly. From what I can see on screen in front of me now, I know you maybe can or can't. I hope somebody sent these along to you. Is it's just the same thing, right? It's just instead of having a star that you know where it's going to be at a given time because of the patterns that the stars go through by using an almanac, you're saying, well, we know exactly where this satellite is in 3-dimensional space at this particular moment in time.
Yeah, so it seems like they copied exactly that same method, how we navigate with the stars. And if they are bouncing off things in the air or have in the air floatable satellites, whatever means, as we've seen in the pictures, the same can be done. But to say that they're in space that's where they die immediately.
I mean, I could be wrong. I'm still looking into it, but like my initial understanding was that rather than these circles being actual circles on the ground, they're more like the sphere around the satellite and where they intersect these spheres.
Be careful of the imagery. Be careful of the imagery because that's the trick. I mean, is a radius line curved? Just answer that.
No.
Is a circle a sphere?
No.
What they're putting on the ground is 3 circles, and you're going to be taking a radius from the point on the ground beneath the satellite in this example to the outside edge of a circle. That's a 2-dimensional circle. And the question that almost exactly is being asked by 10th Man is a radius, that would be a line from the center position of the GP of the satellite to the outside edge of the circle that's being drawn, is that curved, or can it be curved? I take it didn't.
Well, a radius can't be curved, of course.
Right. So as soon as you plop that onto the top of a sphere, suddenly, to give you an area on the ground itself, the center point of the circle would have a curved radius in relation to the ground that it's moving over the top of. If you're going to plot it on the ground, and that's where you're trying to find your position of, right? So suddenly it fails because you don't have curved radii.
I'm just saying, like, my understanding was that the ping gives like the distance from the ground position to the satellite, like a straight line from the person on the ground to the satellite in the sky.
Yeah.
Creating this like a radius of a sphere rather than a circle on the ground.
Stop.
Yeah.
Stop. So a straight line from you on the ground to the satellite, right?
Yep.
Now you're saying, in terms of the way it's described, they describe a sphere emanating out from the satellite and a straight line that's going through the sphere, but you could just ignore the sphere bit and just say a straight line from you to the satellite, right?
Yep.
There's your hypotenuse.
Well, what they use is that distance, right? Rather than the angle. That's why it's called trilateration. It's not an angle.
But what's the distance useful for? So the distance from you to that satellite?
Well, because that's why you can't use 1, not even 2. The minimum is 3, and it's usually 4. You need 4 satellites to get an accurate position.
Hang on. I just posted pictures of them using 2 and having 2 circle of equal altitudes crossing, and you're one of those 2 positions. They use 3 to get a fix. It's just like celestial navigation. Don't fall for the trick. You can't have... Here, Nathan, I sent you that picture of the 3 circles on the blue globe in Master B, and it shows a 90-degree...
Don't get me wrong. I'm just playing devil's advocate. I know.
No, I'm glad you are. I'm just trying to explain. Don't fall for the image. Ask the better question. You know what the better question is? How can a radius be curved?
Can't.
Don't fall for the imagery. The imagery shows a boat on top of a globe with a short tangent line with just one point meeting a sphere. That's what it shows. And they're saying, oh, well, that's how we get it. The zenith directly above. And then you go over here on this part of the Earth, of course, it's falling away. They draw another tangent line. And the zenith is coming in sideways. Well, that's the second circle of equal altitude. Well, how are you ever going to get a straight line to the person when it's 6,000 miles of diameter or 4,000 miles of radius from that circle of equal altitude? It's got to curve over the surface. If it's being done on the surface, that's curved. But you can't have a radius curve. So they say, well, never mind that. We're actually taking it from the center of the Earth where we can get a corner. Yeah, but that's not how sextant is used. You only go to the center of the Earth because you pre-assume you're on a sphere and say you go to the center of the Earth. You haven't proven that you're anywhere on the center of the Earth because you don't have R. Black Swan destroyed your R. They can't use the center of the Earth for anything anymore because there is no R due to the Black Swan. So it's really being done on a flat surface, then later with imagery and all the language they use to say it's happening from the center. It's because they need that corresponding angle because they can't get it from the surface because the surface curves. So they need a place where it doesn't curve. That's where center of the Earth to get the central angle, 2 lines meeting, creating a corner, achieving a vertex. Well, that's where we're getting it from. No, you're not. You're getting it from the surface, and the surface is flat, and that's why it works.
Yeah, all of those steps that are described by anti-flat earthers after the fact aren't what's actually done in terms of triangulation. And from what I can see in the depictions, that's not what's done with the... I forgot the term already. These... Trilateration.
Trilateration.
Yeah, I see how it's being described by depiction with the almost exactly spheres around the satellites in this particular depiction. But what you're actually
they're not my spheres.
Say again? I know they're not. I know.
I'm saying they're not.
What you described, I didn't think I had to be careful with my words. Fair enough. But yeah, the circle that's actually intersecting these 2 spheres in the 2 satellite depiction. Can you guys in G+ see that? We're in 3D trilateration, and then the depiction that says 2 satellites has got, of course, because this is a tricky dicky depiction, but you've got a circle, I think it's red, in between the 2 spheres. Well, that's going to be where you get your radius of it, even though it's stuck in on its side. It's like, no, that's your area of equal elevation.
Nathan, I just sent a picture. I think it's one of my. It's an older picture from an older video. Celestial horizon. It shows an airplane And tell me when you get there.
I think I'm there.
Top. Yeah, so
go on.
See, let's not forget what this, because this gentleman who just brought this up, I'm glad he did, because when people see this image and when the show is replayed, or if they can see it now, the 3 angled lines coming in that are yellow, that's supposed to be parallel sun rays.
Oh,
the
sorry.
Celestial. Are you there?
I might have been on the wrong image. Do you want the blue circle with the 3 stars?
No. That was before. Go to the very last image I just sent. It'll be the last one.
It hasn't come through.
Okay. All right. Well, when it does, we'll go over it.
Okay.
We're good to go?
No, it's not come through. I'll tell you when it does. It's just taking its sweet time.
All right. Gotcha. All right. Well, we'll talk about the blue one. So there you go. You got 3 circle of equal altitudes. On the blue one, I see Adam's putting up the one I'm talking about now.
I've got it. Okay, so you've got the celestial horizon, the plane, and the 3 lines going down. Got it.
All right. Let me just walk everyone through this to the best of my knowledge. The 3 yellow lines coming in at an angle is the sun at its zenith with parallel rays, which of course we don't have because the sun's rays are divergent. So that's the first lie, spotted right away. The second one, look at the shadow that the ball Earth casts. It's perfectly aligned with the parallel rays. Third, celestial horizon, really the equator line. That's 0 for you ballers. 0. And then if you go north, you go to the North Pole, that's 90 degrees. If you go south, you go to the South Pole on your ball, that's 90 degrees. So the equator line is your baseline, 0. Now, you see that angle with that longest sun ray meeting the center of this presupposed sphere. You have 2 straight lines. The sun ray is a straight line, and the equator line is a straight line. There you can form an angle. If that sun ray was coming in, use your imagination, straight from the top, it would create a 90. But that's assumed already, because this angle is part of the co-altitude. So if this angle is 45, guess what they're not showing, the one coming from 90 would be? 45. You see, you can't get rid of 90. You need it. So quit trying to get rid of it. But now let's take apart your fake picture here. So they need angles because a sextant is an angle measuring device. Now let's go to the person on top of the sphere with the straight line, tangent line. And that angle matches the one at the center. How so? How come? Well, because they pre-assume the sun ray comes in parallel and it can be corresponding angles. Problem with this is the arc that Brian talks about in the chord. You flatten that arc, you're going to have a problem because of the 3 circle of equal altitudes being such vast distances. But I digress. Let's just stick with this picture because they don't want to talk about the chord and the arc and all that stuff. So on the top of this ball, you have a sailboat. But it's got the same angle as if you were at the center of the Earth. Well, how is that possible?
Hold on. Which image am I supposed to be on?
Same one. I'm just saying that second line up is where the boat would be.
Okay.
On top of the surface of the Earth. See, all those angles, whether you're in a plane, which is the third straight line, on top of the ball where a sailboat would be, or you with a sextant, the second one, they all have to line up with the center of the Earth because that's the only place you can get an angle on a circle or a sphere. But that radius line has to be straight. So when they use circle of equal altitude for navigation, as we saw also for the satellite imagery, so-called, they need 90 degrees. And since you're taking the observation from the surface of the Earth, you can't get a corresponding angle unless you fall for the trick that sunlight comes in parallel and that's actually being taken from the center. Well, let's just excuse both those. Sunlight comes in divergent, crepuscular rays, plenty of imagery. Reality shows us that. And no one's taking anything from the center of the Earth. We're taking it from the surface of the Earth. So that leaves you with a choice. Is the surface curved or is the surface level? Well, since you need a baseline of 0, just like you do here in the presupposition celestial horizon, you need that baseline on the surface for the sextant to work. So the sextant proves a flat Earth. All they've done is they've taken how a sextant works on the flat plane and moved it to the center of a ball to say we live on a ball. The airplane.
Sorry, I thought you were finished.
No, it's okay. I was going to say the same applies for the airplane with their bubble sextants. Go on.
I was going to say it still doesn't seem to match up exactly with the depiction that you've got of the Trilateration, because I was trying to say this earlier, the guy's got a circle that's meeting the ground, but it's not on the ground in terms of how they're positioning these 3 satellites, or 4 satellites in the one example. So I don't think I'm fully understanding it, other than
I'm not tying this to trilateration. I'm tying it to how they, on one hand, say you need 3 circles of equal altitude with a straight radius that can cover 10, 15,000 miles of the Earth's surface, which obviously destroys that whole thing because radius lines don't curve, and celestial navigation. And so when people want to say the sextant works on the globe, they always have to go to this central angle that is coming from the middle of the Earth, where the radius starts. So, but that's not how it's being done, because you're on the surface of the Earth using the sextant. And you need that baseline that they can create in this imaginary sphere. But they can't create that baseline on the surface that's curving.
I would just like to say that the whole thing of bringing the angle, let's say you have a 60-degree angle or something, you take off the surface, and if you pre-assume then that that's going to be going from the center of a globe, let's say with a radius of 3959, that angle will then change the position of the star, like I showed in the diagram I did. It changes the position of the star to the observer on the surface, because that angle, is going to, from the center of a sphere, is going to be going out and out and out and out. So for the observer, their angle on the surface of the Earth to the star that is now coming from the angle that is showing the star that is now coming from the center of the globe, that would mean that the person on the surface was wasting their time taking the original angle, because the star is now in a completely different position. Exactly. If you understand what I mean.
Exactly, Brian. That's why I gave you props for that. And Adam yesterday did it. If Adam's still able, he can bring that picture where he drew a chord line.
Have you got that
to show what you're talking about?
Have you got that picture, Adam, so we can pop it up on screen? There, Adam, you still with us? Adam?
Yeah, give me a sec. Sorry.
I got it.
Is it going to get posted in Skype, or one are you going to present it on screen?
Skype. Oh, present it? Okay, I can present it too.
Into Skype, but for some reason my Skype's running really slowly and taking an eternity to actually put stuff up. Okay, someone's presenting it in G+ Podlux. Great. Eli? Okay. That's tiny, teeny, tiny. Ah, that's no good, Eli.
The picture's not uploading properly.
Yeah.
One second.
But don't worry, Adam's working on it. Eli's working on it.
We're all working on it.
It's coming.
Okay. Shall I do some elevator music? Dun, 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 dun.
I see
There we go. Okay, brilliant. Brian, it's up. I don't know if you can see it, but if you want to just give your explanation again, how you've got to draw a chord to grain a straight radius, and you're not going to be slicing tops off spheres, etc., etc.
Yeah, I can see it there, yeah. The chord and the arc thing, I actually have an interesting story about that. It's slightly, not off topic, but it's slightly different. there's a surveyor called Larry Scott, and he gave Bev the example of how he measured the radius of the globe. And what he said he did is he took a straight line distance between three places. So you have one place at either end and another place in the center of it in America. And what he did is that he said that the one big distance was shorter than the two smaller distances. So the big distance from the first place through the second place and to the third place, he said, was shorter than the distance from the first place to the second place and then the second place to the third place, right? And I knew straight away what he was doing. And then he threw in the word chord. What he did is he brought a straight chord from through the three places, and he measured that length of that chord, and then he done another measurement from A to B and B to C over the arc, and it showed that it was longer, and that was his proof that the Earth was a globe.
What?
And that was how we formulated a
Hold on,
radius. Yeah.
stop. What do you mean that was his proof that it's a sphere? I thought you were going to go on to say, and that's how he demonstrated that how wrong this was because the surface no longer matches up with the chord radius. But you're saying that's how he used it as a globe. That doesn't compute. Suddenly, my brain scrambled. Brian, explain.
Yeah, that's what he did. He just, I knew what he was saying when he was saying it. I was like, is this fella really saying this? I was listening to it on Bev's Hangout from yesterday, I think it was. And he said he brought a straight line through three places. And when he measured that straight line in distance, he knew the distance between the three places. And when he measured that straight line in distance, that as one straight measurement, it was shorter from when it went from A to B, or A through B to C, it was shorter than when he went from A to B and then B to C. And the reason is that he measured the chord as the one straight measurement. But when he measured the two other measurements, he measured them, he cut the chord in half and then measured them over the arc. And he said that was proof of a radius.
My God.
A claim surveyor.
My God.
Yeah.
So when he's drawing a chord, why is he drawing a chord? Presumably because he needs 90 degrees to it, right?
Well, yeah, this was his claim of measuring of a radius. Where did he get the arc from? This is the thing. The arc would involve a radius.
Right, so it's got to have a radius first. Right.
Yeah. No, it was crazy, like. But this is how we measure. This is how we measure the radius of the Earth, of the globe. But I just had to throw that in there because chords and arcs are present.
Well, this is it. It's weird that somebody's using that to claim that they can take their presupposed arc, utilizing the radius that they've already presupposed, and then claim that they can derive radius values from that. That's very interesting, other than the fact that when you draw the chord line, when we're describing how you can't triangulate these positions on a spherical surface, because the moment you do, you've got to try and acquire a 90-degree angle. So if you're trying to draw out an area of equal elevation, well, literally, what is drawing a chord? Metaphorically speaking, it's slicing the top of the sphere off so that you end up with a flat circle to get a radius value. Well, who's doing this? Is this something that they have to trouble themselves with when they're out at sea? Well, absolutely not. They just take it to be a flat plane. No chord lines are being drawn. It's absolutely absurd. They're adding this after the fact to try and justify it when we talk about the sextant, but this guy's claiming he can derive radius values from this? What the hell?
Yeah, I mean, no matter what they do, they have to draw. Like, they're at this for years, putting chords through imaginary spheres, and then claiming like that's how they do something, because they have to do stuff like that. They're always putting chords through imaginary spheres and using the diameter of the equator of their imaginary sphere as a baseline for doing something. This is a constant for years, isn't it?
It's going to have needed R, Brian, to draw the sphere first, to put the chord through, to then derive R back again from it. That's nonsense.
Perfect, succinct summary of precisely what they're doing. Oh, well, I'm going to be drawing a chord. Well, we're one step ahead of where Adam succinctly started, with them drawing out a sphere with the R value to then draw a chord through it. It's like so far down the begging the question. It's a begging the question fallacy on steroids.
Yeah, as I said, where did he get the art from? No, that would have required R.
Notice we never, ever, ever get a fundy piping up about where they get their R from. We have these discussions almost daily about specifically the R value that's going to be assumed at some point during a globe proof. But when are we ever having anybody come and challenge us and say, no, you are ignorant, flat earther, this is how we get R. And it's perfectly acceptable to then presuppose that R value as the spherical surface I'm going to be measuring when I do anything ever, and back engineer any problems out at the afterwards state when you point out that it doesn't work like that. I'm still going to assume it, and here's how I get it. But nobody's doing that.
You just ignore the black swan, Nathan, I'm telling you. They just close their eyes and make believe it don't exist.
Well, that's why anytime someone brings up, we get the central angle, you say, well, you need R for that. You need R first to even go to a presupposed center of a globe to say that's where you're basing your central angle, the center of the Earth. You can't just say it's happening that way just because of a drawing. When we know the sailors on top of the surface of a plane, which acts as this baseline, the horizon, and it goes on beyond his optical reach of 3 miles or whatever it is that he could see, to the GP of a sun that's directly over that spot of a plane surface Earth, to give the radius to the navigator, has to be a straight line, calculated to be the distance from the circle of equal altitude. See, that's how it works. But in the imagery, oh, we get it from the center. Well, you need R for that. And you need sunlight to come in parallel, and you got neither. Nathan, I got a picture, the last one. It's a green background, and it shows the relationship between the center and the chord, many chords. And
perpendicular bisector.
It's going to be, well, that's just a follow-up, but go to the one with the green background.
Okay.
So here you go. There's the center of your presupposed Earth. And you see that last one, that chord? You see what Brian's talking about? That arc, see, that arc is a problem. Because now you got to flatten that arc. And all your readings are going to be wrong. All your angles are going to change. So it can't happen from the center.
Arc has R in it.
So does our bark.
Yeah, let's not do
so
over
many
our words.
things
No,
have
let's
R.
not. So the point is, all we've been doing for the last couple of years is saying, where's R? That's it. Now, on the basis that we've been asking for an R value measurement, we literally have no opposition. That's what it boils down to. The ball has lost. Because if they hadn't, they'd be here in droves telling us how stupid we were. Like they were back in the day.
How I called it with the R zombies. Very proud of that one.
So, but seriously, we're saying every single claim to be a globe proof in existence starts with the presupposition of this R value. For Earth, there's a sphere radius 3959. Where's anybody to challenge us on that and say, no, you are wrong. It has been measured. Here it is. Where are those people? Where are they?
Well, you got to admit, when the Black Swan first came out, January 2020, they showed up and they embarrassed themselves. They got tired of embarrassing themselves, so they're not showing up anymore because it's not a winning argument that any of them posed. You presuppose everything. And if you do the Black Swan, the modus tollens, you're basically giving them a proper way to prove they're begging the question. if the Earth is a sphere with a radius of 3959. We're handing it to them in the platter, and they still can't answer it. You know, you got ramifications if you're going to say the Earth is a sphere. You got to prove R, and the black swan shows it's past this geometric limitation. It can't be further than this, and yet it's further than this by a whopping 9, 10 plus miles, at least in that one image. And it's like, well, then goodbye, it's over.
Where are they?
All of those. Who?
Where are they? They're in the chat skanking. Some of them, anyway, chat skanking.
Well, are
talking
any of those,
about Nathan in chat like little cowards.
Are any in the after show live stream, i.e. the bit that we're actually talking to each other in right now?
Yeah.
Who's in there?
You got
I bet Tim is in there, right?
and Puppy Lover, you know, the usual skank and file retards that wouldn't know their ass from a friggin' 30-pound torque wrench.
All right.
You know, same old thing.
They're not in there offering useful, debatable points that we could sink our teeth into.
Nah, just generalized, baseless assertions. You know the routine.
They're in a wave of pain they need to share with us right now, I think, because they were going at it like in the early bird chat today too. You know, sometimes it's one of those days, and then they just have to do that everywhere.
Well, I'm kind of not looking.
They're in a bit.
Sorry, just one sec. I'm not looking for them to have a blazing row with us about anything. I'm more trying to assess their consideration on the R situation. Our argument has been the same for 2 straight years, and it's got quieter and quieter and quieter and quieter. Now we've got people, so-called chat skanks. And I want to know, regardless of your arguments, our argument is that you don't have an R value. What have you got to say for that? Anything?
All I hear is silence.
Well, they're in a position, let's just take the sextant at the moment, where all they can do is reaffirm what they've already claimed concerning the sextant, which is what Bob the Science Guy's latest video did. He has 1 of 3 videos coming out. The first one came out. It's just a reaffirmation of what the claim is to do with the sextant. So, just using that as an example, all they can do is give back the same claim that we originally refuted. You know, the best they could do when it comes to a radius value is say, oh, it's been measured loads of times, or you don't understand it, or there's thousands of ways to measure it. But it's all vague. There's no
Bob,
specific.
the science guy? Why are you even talking about him, dude? He can't even say conundrum, and he thinks there's Coriolis effect when you're standing on the Earth or driving a car. You experience Coriolis. This guy is he's scary retarded. See, this guy's not lying. Look into his eyes. That guy is a scary retard fur, man. I'll tell you, he scares me. So why are you even talking about it in his stupid video?
Well, I'm just bringing it up because that's the rebuttal. That's the first rebuttal to the sextant we've got.
A rebuttal from a guy that can't say conundrum?
Well, that's not my fault. I mean, I'm just giving you the rebuttal that was given from their side.
I watched that video, Brian, after you sent me the link, and it's so basic, and it's just a rehashing of everything I've seen before. And he did not address the GP, the circle of equal altitude, the straight radius line covering thousands of miles of the surface of the Earth. He did not address any of those things. It was such a basic thing that you can just go anywhere on the internet and get. It's just their claims again of R.
Or just what did they get? What did he claim?
Well,
go on, Brian.
It's only the first of 3 videos, so he might be addressing the line of position in the next 2. I don't know, but I leave Tent to tell you. Tent, you go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, what I got from it was boring, and what QE said about his eyes. I just studied body. You know, I'm a salesman.
Stop.
So I study body language.
Stop. Right. So far, I've had two people tell me that you reaffirm the original claim. Right. Fine. What was the original claim in that case? He reaffirmed it by saying what?
Center of the Earth is where the reading's being taken from.
He assumed R.
What?
Yeah. Central angle. That's why I put up that slide, because that's the only way you can get a 90 to work.
Wow.
It's not just an assumption of R, though. It's an assumption of the heliocentric model.
Yes.
Because as part of his claim was parallel sun rays, and that comes from the claim that the sun is a big, massive, huge ball of plasma, 93 million miles away. So that also, let's say, cognitively makes it okay for them to put the angle in the center of a globe. Now, logically and realistically, it doesn't work, but cognitively, it allows them to do that.
Yeah, Brian,
You mean that time he's trying to demonstrate it's parallel with all the mirrors? Right?
Brian's onto something here, which is good. Since the sun rays come in parallel, and since we can achieve the angle that we want from the center of the Earth, the globe, all these two presuppositions is the whole talk he had, basically.
So in other words, it was a video about how he's going to beg the question.
Yeah, the whole video was begging the question. It was boring and laughable.
Okay.
But it's also a funny attempt, though, to kind of like still try to keep reinforcing the idea of these lights being infinitely far away and thus parallel based on a presupposition of sphere, when in reality, yeah, the lights are kind of weird because we can't even really pinpoint them down to specific lights coming from specific positions.
Hold on.
Right? And he's playing with that.
Hold on.
But he's still presupposing R.
Sorry. Okay, so this was a redress to the claim that you're going to draw out a 90 on a flat plane. Now, I know you've already answered this, so hence I know where I'm leading you. But in regards to how it's actually done, regardless of when I assume that I can get 90 degrees from a presupposed centre of a presupposed spherical Earth and that the light rays are coming in parallel, when did he actually address the fact that that is not what's done?
Well, he actually was did the next trick, which is he drew a tangent line that was the short line that we always see on top of a sphere, and saying at this point you have a baseline to zero where it just touches the surface at that point. You know how they draw that short tangent line. I say, great, about a circle of equal altitude that goes on for thousands of miles. Where's the tangent?
Hold on. Where did he? He drew a tangent. What was he drawing? Where is he drawing a tangent from? What to what? A tangent for what?
He drew a tangent. No, well, it wasn't. He called it a tangent line, wasn't it? It was a tangent plane where he put the center of the line on top of the globe. It's just, a tangent plane like in surveying, basically the same thing. Only 2D, not 3D.
A flat plane on a circle. In other words, he chopped the top of the sphere off to give him a flat surface to work with.
Well, no, he didn't draw a chord through it. He just put a tangent on top of it.
I'll go there.
Hold on, Ted. Hold on.
Screenshot.
Hold on. When you say put a tangent on top of it, is he drawing a chord or is he drawing a tangent? What's he doing?
He's putting a tangent plane, which is the center of the line. The tangent line will be touching the sphere at one point, and he put it on what looked like the top of the sphere. So he just drew a straight line across the top of the sphere. He didn't draw a chord through it. He just put a straight line on top of the sphere and called it a tangent line. Really what it is a tangent plane. He created an imaginary tangent plane.
I gotcha. So he's got a straight line that's like a seesaw on top of the curve, and the center point of that straight line is the center point of the tangent plane, which is the accurate description you're ascribing when he just called it a tangent. Correct?
Yeah, when he said tangent line, it's not correct. It's a tangent plane, basically, to be more correct counterpart.
I understand. And that's going to be his equivalency for the area of equal altitude, right?
Well, that's going to be how he gets his original vertex. You see, this is the thing, and Elizabeth Tent was saying a second ago, he'll get his vertex, his 90 degrees, off of that tangent plane. But in his world, the ground is falling away below you all the time. So you'll only get a vertex off of this imaginary tangent plane that he placed on the top of his globe. And that allows him to take that vertex then and move it to the center of his globe, using the diameter of the equator.
Oh, this is brilliant. Hold on, someone sent me a screenshot to make this visually obvious.
I did.
This is epic.
I did.
So thank you very much, Tenth. So let me get this straight. Even when he's trying to explain to his audience how it's being done, he's still drawing out a flat surface. Now, let me just, for the audience's benefit, right, see, for the guys in G+, if you can follow along with the last Skype image that was sent by 10th, right? So he's got his 90-degree angle here, right, and he's measuring out to this star, which we're going to call O, although I just think he's just drawn a circle for a star. He's not labelled them individually, right? So he's got this star closest to where he's got his tangent plane that was just described, this straight line, yeah? Well, he's doing this so he can actually perform the measurement to do the triangulation. Now, like all of them, he hasn't drawn in the 90 that he's actually going to be drawing to get the GP of this star, right? He's saying that this star is triangulatable, therefore it's going to meet this tangent plane at 90 degrees, right? He's got his zenith being the center position of this tangent plane, correct, Brian?
Here, let me give you background. That the 2 zeros is actually the sun. It's the same sun. What he's saying is, since the sunlight comes in parallel, it's actually one sun. But the sun on the lower one, where it says GP, that's where its location is on their spherical model. So that's where the sun is. But here you are on top, and it says 90, and it's got your zenith coming down to the center of the earth, whereas the sun, its zenith is coming in on an angled version to the same center of the earth. That's what he's trying to show here, the corresponding angles, because sunlight comes in parallel.
Ah, I see. So he's saying as you move, as the sun moves, its light shining onto the earth hasn't changed its angle, and he still needs this straight line. I'll just get back to my original point. What he's got below this angle is how much it doesn't work on a sphere. This differential between this straight flat line and the curved line beneath it. That's the differential in terms of how much it doesn't work. Why? Well, because what's actually done? Well, none of this spherical stuff is taken into consideration because you've already got a flat plane. So you don't have to do anything like this. You just take the plane surface with parallel lines running to each of the GPs of each of the lights that you will measure on that flat surface. So the consideration for this curved line is nothing more than his diagram showing how much the surface being measured for the angle that's required to do the triangulation doesn't jive with the curved line beneath it that isn't being used.
Yeah, if you noticed the corresponding angles of the one black line coming in between the two parallel black lines having the same angle, the one in the lower one is the center of the earth, and the one on the top one having the same angle is the top of the earth. So he drew that inside the circle there. So that's what he's trying to show here. But again, that's the problem. You need R and you need sunlight to be parallel, and you got neither. So he's done.
But even with the claim of power, like I know it's total nonsense, the whole parallel sunlight thing. If you look at his diagram there, this is absolute evidence, right, from him, right, back to him, that if you take the angle from that 90-degree tangent plane at the top of his sphere to the globe or to the sun that's matching the angle coming from the center of his sphere, that changes your angle immediately. But he's trying to claim that it goes back to heliocentric belief that the sun is so big that anywhere you point towards, it's like the whole thing with Polaris. Everything is pointing up the way towards Polaris. No matter where you are in the northern hemisphere on our globe, up the way is always directly towards Polaris. So technically there's no angle to Polaris because everything is a straight line up to Polaris, because they think Polaris is this monstrous star that's so huge that everything goes up the way you can't miss it, kind of thing, which if you point straight up in the air. That's their claim. The same thing is happening here with the sun. But I said to him, I corrected him on the whole angle thing. I said that changes the initial original angle. It makes it completely pointless. Why would you take this initial original angle, move it to the center of your sphere, and then have to throw it out again because you have this new angle?
Correct.
And his claim in the video was that basically the claim, without making the claim, he insinuated it, that parallel sun rays that don't happen, these parallel rays, are only because they believe they have this huge sun and it's so big, right, that even though it's 93 million miles away, by the time the rays of that sun has hit the globe Earth, it hasn't even hardly started, the inverse square law of light hasn't even hardly started yet. This is what they want you to believe. So any direction in the same angle from any position there that he sends a line out is hitting the same thing. But the sun has an angular size in the sky. No matter what claim you make about it, it has an angular size. So if I take an angle to the sun here, and I drop that angle to the top of a building, a high-rise building, right? And I drop that angle down to the bottom of that high-rise building, and I take the angle again, put the angle straight out the way, then it's going to be a different, like from my position at the top of the high-rise building, that will change my angle to the sun immediately. You know, it's just begging the question. You know, you can't, it doesn't work. And they don't do it. As Nathan said, they don't do this. They just take an angle and use it. They're not out there in the middle of the ocean drawing diagrams. They're not doing any of that.
But that was my last question. So at what part of the video does he explain where this is actually applied in physical reality? Regardless of his explanation for how he's saying parallel light comes in reality, what I see depicted is triangulation with the sun if you wait a little while for the sun to move. However, on his diagram with the curved surface, it no longer jives, as Brian's just explained, with the original angle that you take. So this depiction could actually have triangulation done with the sun. You just wait for it to move its position. So you can then draw another circle below its GP. But in relation to the original 90-degree line that you've got, not this new angle that's pointing towards the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth. But my point, I'll say it one more time, where's this actually done, ever?
It's not. It's not. That's why the sextant kills it. And the black swan says, you ain't got R.
What he actually did in the video is a little bit later on, he went through how you find your latitude using the sun. And what he actually laid out was pretty okay, pretty good. No one could really fault it. That is how you do it. He showed how it's done and how you use the almanac to do it. And he gave a simple analogy, or he used the equinox, or he used the sorry, I can't remember exactly. He used the June to July and where the sun is in the sky, and he went through how he did it when he was in Florida or something.
The declination.
Yeah, declination. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, but it wasn't declination. That wasn't the word I was looking for. Not declination wasn't the word I was looking for. It was a different word.
Solstice or the equinox?
No. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The point is that what he did was okay, right? But that doesn't mean the stuff he did before that was okay. And as well as that, I sent him a video within my comment from a guy, right? Because I saw Bob do something, giving an explanation of using the sextant, of how you sight the horizon and a star. And the way Bob did it was not the way this other experienced mariner did it. And he said the other way was, the way Bob did it was not the way to do it.
The mariner that you sent the video is from the Maryland School of, I can't remember the last part, but this gentleman has
navigation.
Navigation. This gentleman has logged 60,000 miles at sea with the sextant. So I think he explains it, quite well. He's still the glober, but he explains it quite well.
Yeah, well, what this man did originally, right? Now, don't hold this. I'm not going to lay this on Bob's doorstep because he doesn't have that experience. But you can't be. What Bob did with his sextant was he looked at the horizon, if I remember correctly, and then he moved the index arm to look at a star. But that's not what you do. And this man showed it. You literally tilt your head, right? Look at the star, right? You unlock the index arm, right? And you actually bring your head down and you don't move the index arm yourself, the sextant moves through where the index arm is to get to the horizon, and that's how you properly do it. Now, I don't mind if Bob did it a little bit wrong, because anyone who doesn't use a sextant and doesn't go out on the high seas, they could get that part wrong, right, while they're giving a brief description. I don't mind that. But when I sent him the video about it, he tried to claim that it was the same thing as he was doing. So he showed no humility.
Well, Brian,
you're wrong.
Let's not skip the bigger point of that. The purpose of bringing the sun down to the horizon and doing the rocking motion to where it's barely touching the surface of the horizon. Why is that even being done?
Get an angle to measure the angle.
Right. To what? The GP of the sun over the earth at that precise moment of time. That's why you have to go to right away and say, what time is it? You start with the seconds first, then the minutes. You don't look at the minute, you look at the second at the chronometer, then the minute, and then you look at your degree mark on the sextant. So the whole purpose, let's just stay here for 20 seconds. Why do you do that? So that you can bring the sun's actual position over the earth to get its GP, so you can draw your circle of equal altitude, which gives you a straight radius line to you once you figure out the azimuth and the bearing and go through the steps of the line of position. That's thousands of miles.
Exactly. This is always going to boil down to the exact same thing. You have a straight line between you and the GP of any star that you triangulate with. Now, what is the GP? Well, it's where it meets that straight line at 90 degrees. In other words, the point directly below that star. Well, every single star in every single example, measured or otherwise, has a presumed 90-degree angle between you and it at the bottom of it. That's called its GP. So you've got a flat plane around you in all directions for this to work. Now there's no, well, if we consider that the horizon's a 90-degree line that gives us a flat plane, and we transpose that flat plane up to the top of a sphere, then we can consider that light coming in parallel. It's like, none of this is done. Just a flat plane and an angle measurement to a star. That's all that's being done. So all this nonsense about how it could be done on a sphere, yeah, it might be. But it isn't.
Right.
I mean, yeah, how do you do that
go ahead,
when the stars are moving? How do you get a GP when the stars are constantly moving?
Good question.
Just curious.
So that's why it was just explained 25 seconds ago by 10, but that's fine. So in terms of the sun...
I'm sorry, I was driving.
It's okay. He described it for the sun, not the stars. So you've got to get an exact timing to the second to know where the GP is at that particular precise moment when you measure it. So it's all plotted out because they know exactly where these lights are going to be at what time. It's very well documented to the second. So they can predict it to the second in the future, so you can know exactly what piece of land that star is above. And were you to be on that piece of land, and you looked up, you know what would happen? That star would be above you.
Yeah. All right. All right. So basically, the nautical almanac is so precise. In fact, for anyone to use the sun to get the latitude, obviously it's going to involve time from Greenwich to where the sailor is. So you got to, that's the longitudinal line, and then the latitude as well. So the whole point is you need to know where that star is, sun in this case, or any star. Okay, so this works with them all. And that's the whole reason you have the nautical almanac. So what is the nautical almanac? It's the position of zenith. Can I say it again? Zenith, 90. Zenith is synonymous with 90. We can't get rid of 90 ballers. You need it. We need it. So when the sun is directly overhead, that's zenith. That's 90. When it touches the surface of the earth, which is flat, that's perpendicular. It creates a 90-degree box that your navigational books put there. The circle of equal altitude was not designed by 10th man or any flat earther. That's Marquis Saint-Hilaire. It's his method. It's hundreds of years old.
And further to that, even when the apologists try and work around their assumption that they insert after the fact, they still need 90. Here's Bob with his 90, drawn out as a line that doesn't match with his sphere. So he still needs it, because that's how it's done.
Yep, they need that tangent plane.
Well, I'd just like to state...
Well, let me finish. So the Nautical Almanac gives the address. It's like an address book of the zenith position of the 64 navigational stars any moment, every hour of any day. And I've got one that goes from 2000 to 2050. Or you can buy one that you can change each year. It's up to you. The ephemeris also does that for astronomy. So they know. They've mapped the sky. And they know exactly how it relates to the plane below. That's how you use celestial navigation. Go on, Brian.
Can I, well, it's me. Hey, I do kind of sound like Brian. That's crazy without the... Anyway.
No, I spoke a second ago. I know you're pretending to be.
Hey, don't be like that, both of you. How quick is your point, Eli? Is it fast?
You know what? Yes, okay.
No, go ahead, Eli.
Okay, so I'm speaking to someone on Facebook, right? And he says, well, you know, you could use the stars to actually get a latitude. You don't even need a longitude, right? So I said, you know what? Why don't you just share with me how it's done? Not the words you've used, but show me a depiction of what they actually do. And he sent me to this article, and you know what happens when they do that? It debunks their whole argument, right? So it's titled The Astrolabe, How to Make One and Understanding Its Use. So never mind the depiction of the 90-degree angle between the star, the horizon, and the person using the astrolabe. I went all the way down to number 4, where they said the following formula was then used: latitude, which is the thing that he said they could get on a curved surface, latitude equals 90 degrees minus measured altitude plus declination. So there you go.
So, in other words, it's the dip angle to get you onto the 90-degree surface that they're saying you must have. And that's it. Exactly as 10th Man's described dozens of times.
Okay, so
Brian, go Brian. I want to
hold on, everyone be quiet, because I've summarised Eli's point. It was concise enough. Go ahead, Brian.
Can't you go ahead for a minute? Go on.
All right. Polaris, the stationary star, moves very little, so it's basically stationary. The equator line is 0 on the map. So once you use Polaris, whatever it is, whatever your reading is, that is your latitude, because Polaris is at 90. And as you move away from it on a flat plane, your angles change. So let's say you're halfway away from it to the 0 line of the equator for the mapping purposes, then you're at 45-degree latitude. Because you shoot it, it says 45 to Polaris, so you're at 45-degree latitude because that star doesn't move. So you can do it that way, but that's just that star. For the sun, that does move. You need the Greenwich mean time for the longitude, and then you work out your latitude as well with the high noon, okay? Or wherever the GP of the sun is at the time you do it, you have to go to the almanac and find out where it's supposed to be at that time that you did the longitude. Oh, it's over here, latitude-wise. And so, yeah, it's all there. It's just a map of the sky and the address for each part of where it's 90 degree over Earth at any given moment and second.
Meet me at high noon.
So you always use one specific time zone then when you do this, right?
For longitude, yes, because they had to have somewhere, and they chose Greenwich, and that's the meridian that it's on, and so that's the one you use going east and west, so that you know if you're ahead of Greenwich or behind Greenwich time. So, like if it's, let me see if I can do this right. Let's say it's 3 in the afternoon. if you go west, it's not 3, right? Because Greenwich is earlier than moving west. But if you're east of Greenwich, it could be 5 p.m., but it's only 3 p.m. in Greenwich when you cite that luminary. So yeah, for longitude, they have to use that to get it precise.
I would just like to state that when they use GPS, right? Because I'm tying that into, because you were tying it in earlier today. I'm not moving away from the sextant, I'm just tying this in. When they're using GPS uses 3-dimensional Cartesian coordinates, which is 2 horizontals and a vertical, right? It uses one system to the next. So they have one system on a tangent plane. And when you leave that tangent plane, you're going directly into another tangent plane. And when you leave that one in any direction, you're going into another tangent plane. So your coordinates, as far as GPS is concerned, is always across a 3-dimensional flat plane, or like a flat, let's say, a 0 degrees horizontal plane with elevations, right, above and below sea level, right? So that's how GPS, right, that's how it's worked. You might get your coordinates in latitude, longitude, and like you would off of Google Earth, you get latitude and longitude, and you get height above ellipsoid, right? But that's just like the only way they can give a 3-dimensional and use latitude, longitude, because latitude, longitude is 2-dimensional only. But it's the same for the sextant. Like when they're trying to explain the sextant, they have to use a tangent plane. They have no choice, because that's how it works. So if you look at the word latitude and the word trilateration, I mean, is the lat part in those, are they speaking about lateral direction? Because lateral direction is moving from side to side kind of thing, isn't it?
Sure, but
It's not correct. Lateral. It's moving in a sideways direction kind of thing. So latitudes is like moving sideways out from a central point and sideways in, if you want to see it that way. No, so it's like it's the same system. GPS is just basically a newer version of this use of the sextant, really, isn't it? Like, Nathan said this, and he's correct from whatever I can see. Because when they're using GPS coordinates and they're trying to pre-assume a globe, they always have to create tangent planes constantly. You're always on a tangent plane, no matter where you go or what you're doing. And the same for the sextant. When you're trying to explain the sextant, you have to create tangent planes. You know, like latitude lines. Latitude. What does that mean? What does the word mean? Is its meaning moving in a lateral? Does it mean laterally? Like, is lateral comes into it, right? Somewhere, because the word lat, the part of it that says lat, that has to have some connection to lateral. And trilateration that they use for GPS, the word lateral has to come into that too. Now, how does lateral work on a sphere? Now, maybe I'm wrong. I'm just kind of spitballing here a bit with that, but as far as the word lateral go, but how does lateral work on a sphere? You know, if they're bringing lateral into it.
Okay, please forgive me. I listen to you guys, and I'm driving truck, and I get distracted, so I don't hear everything. But I think I finally understand this. So, 10th, what you're saying is that when you find your star that you want to you get your coordinates from or whatever, so then you look at the map or the book, and that book will tell you exactly where that star is, Greenwich time, right?
No, it tells you where you have to. That's a step to get to there, is what I'm saying. So basically, when you look at the book, once you have your time, okay, let's start at the beginning. You pick up the sextant, you sight a star, you start with the seconds, then the minute mark, and then you go to your sextant, where you said mark, and then read the degrees and also minutes. Then you go to the book, okay, and you say, where is that star at this time of day in the book? Well, you mark the time you took it. Let's just say 2:30 p.m. your time. You
But
go
that's
to the book
Greenwich
and
time,
say,
right?
no, hang on 1 second. So then you go, that star's GP directly over the Earth. You took it at 2:30 p.m. So where is that at 2:30 p.m. on this date? Let's say it's March 4th. You find out exactly where it is. And then you go to the Greenwich time and say, how far am I from Greenwich when I took the sighting? Say you're 6 hours away and the positive. Then you have to do that to get your longitude to that, and then your latitude as well. And where they meet, that's where you are. So the 3 circles of equal altitude, you do that 3 times, and where they cross, that's where you are.
Okay, then if you don't know where you are, how do you know what time it is?
Because you have a chronometer on your boat, a separate watch, so to speak, that's set to Greenwich time only. And then you have your local time on your watch. And that is the difference you apply in the calculation. Because
Well, no,
just
that's what I mean. What I meant was, if you don't know where you are, how do you know what your local time is? How do you know what time zone you're in?
Because that's how you work it with the star's position that's in the nautical almanac, because it tells you where the star is over the Earth. You don't know what your relationship to it is until you go through all these steps.
No,
so you're using them.
Hold on. I see his point. He's saying if you don't know where you are, so you fall asleep and you drift, then you wake up and you go, where the hell am I? Right? Now you're saying, well, look at your watch. But you might have drifted into a completely different zone. So how can you trust your watch?
No, you need GMT.
No, I got that. You've got your chronometer. You've got GMT. Yeah, I can get that bit. But don't you need to minus off your local time?
No.
If I know what time it is, GMT, then that's what I'm going to use to position the star. Yeah. So I need to know what time it is GMT to know where the star's position is. Once I've got the star's position, I know its angle, so I can then draw my circle from that.
Perfect. So but that's what the guy's point was originally, 10th. That's what he said originally to you. You need GMT for this, right? And you said no.
No, if I said it, I made a mistake. No, you need Greenwich time, because they use for the right ascension and declination, which is the mapping of the sky. They use first point of Aries, so that's their Greenwich for that, and that matches up with ours here on Earth, the surface of the Earth. No, you need Greenwich time to know exactly how to calculate where you are with your local time.
But how do you know what your local time is if you don't know where you are?
When you do know where you are, because the previous day when you did it, you were off the coast of France and you know your local time. As you do this day by day, you go to your log. And then when you cross a time zone or daylight savings, in some cases, you have to adjust for that. This is all within the book. It's got tables for it.
If you don't know where you are, how do you know what time zone you're in? That's what I don't understand.
No, because you do know where you are, because you don't just show up at the middle of the ocean. You left the dock.
Yeah, you've been detailing where you've been going.
It's your previous day. It's your previous.
What if you're in a storm?
That's okay. Where were you the day before in the storm? And then now you say, well, how much did I drift? Okay, so you go to take an assumed position based on the dead reckoning of the day before. You could be as much as 100 miles off and still fix it. And they know that. So that's why you have to do the method as you go. If you go watch the videos, they don't know where they are because maybe a storm came. They drifted, but they don't know how much they drifted, maybe 20 miles, 30 miles. So they say, I think I'm here based on yesterday's position, but man, that storm hit me hard. So he says, I think I'm here. Then he does all his sightings, gets the 3 circles of equal altitude, the azimuth and everything else. And by back working it, he says, oh, I went 20 miles off course. This is my actual position.
Well, one of the things.
But he had to use local time, right?
Of course.
I mean,
he has to use.
Okay, hold on.
Let me give some
so if he drifted, how did he know?
Everyone, be quiet, please.
Let
this guy. Hold on, Strat is flat. I want him to actually make his objection clear without everyone jumping over him before he's made it again. I understand he's making the same objection. I just want him to be heard. Say it again. Street is flat. Is that what it is? Strat is flat or something like that?
Strat. Yeah.
Scrat is flat. Go ahead.
Okay. So if the guy drifted and now he doesn't know where he is, how does he know what time zone he's in for local time?
Right. It would start with the first thing you'd have to do is figure out, right, where north, south, east, west is, right? And then if you can do it at that time, what you need to do is find out if you're north of the equator, you need to find out where Polaris is. And Polaris, if you knew what latitude you were at the day before, if you can see Polaris, let's say if you're using north of the equator, if you can see Polaris, right, you will then know what latitude you're at there and then you'll know how much you've drifted south or how much you've drifted north based on that alone. So let's say you were at 35 degrees north yesterday, and now today you're at 45 degrees north going off of Polaris. Then you know, if you didn't intend on being 45 degrees north, at least you know you've drifted to that. Now that'd be a bit of a drift, but at least you know you have drifted that far. So that would be number one. You can then also use the sun to calculate your actual, right? To calculate your actual latitude. So you're getting your latitude, right? Then you work on getting your longitude, or what's known as the local hour varies and the Greenwich hour varies. It's a lot to explain. I'm not an expert on it, but that's how you do it. You have to basically start at the start. Right? Where is north, south, east, west? That's the start. And then you work off of where you actually are. And then you can figure out what your time is. And when you figure out your latitude and longitude, you'll know your time zone, right? Because you're an experienced mariner, you'll know your time zone. Like the average person out there won't know their time zone. But an experienced mariner who's learned all this and used it will know their time zone. And they'll have it in the almanac. And then you get your time. Then, if you've got clear skies and it's the night time, you can sight a star, right? You can then you can take the time, then you refer to your chronometer for your Greenwich Mean Time or whatever. Then you can refer to your almanac. And then you can do that 2 more times and get your actual fix.
They have an acronym called LHA, Local Hour Angle. It's a long process, but it's all based on Greenwich time to begin with, meaning the almanac is based on you using Greenwich time as the base. So you can be in the 2 different time zones. It don't matter. You've kept a log. You know which ones you've crossed before. You take the sighting. You match it to where the sun's GP is supposed to be, and then find out what Greenwich says. Look at that chronometer on your boat, because you got to have it, and for longitude, and then you look at where local hour angle is, and you make the adjustment because the GP of the sun is at that place, and a storm hit you the night before, you may have crossed over to a different time zone. It's all there for the calculations to be done. But this is what I told Nathan the other day. I said, when I saw all of the things that they've done to get a correct position between time zones, latitudes, everything else, I said, wow, this is interesting. I mean, it all works, but can it work on a sphere, or does it only work on a flat plane? So my whole digging in has not been into trying to figure out every detail of all of these adjustments. My main thing about the sextant is it's an angle measuring device. And how do you achieve an angle if you don't have 2 straight lines that meet at a corner and a vertex? I want to kill this thing right at the beginning. Now, I've sat down and watched 10 hours of celestial navigation videos that covered this subject alone, of local hour time and all that. It's like, okay, fine. What does that mean at the end of the day? I want to prove the Earth is flat. And the way to do that is to say, what is the sextant? It's an angle measuring device, and you can't get an angle off a curved surface. This is where we kill them. Okay, now if you want to go into deep
yeah, but stop.
But Scrat, hold on a second, Nathan. Scrat, you're not just showing up as a numpty through 18 dimensions without knowing no times where you came from, right? I'm not a squid. So I'm just trying to think through this common sense. We're on Scrat's question. You just don't show up somewhere just with a sextant. You don't know no times. You don't have anything, right? You always have to keep track of where you're at, even if you get blown off course, right? You have some semblance of where you're at in time. Got it?
I think number one, I think it's a perfectly reasonable question to ask. Number two,
it is.
I'm amazed that bang, like that, 10th has got all of the answers lined up. Not only that, he can also point out how, yeah, I can give you these answers, but it's pretty benign. What we need is a 90 to a flat plane, and that's all that matters. You've got all of these stars around you in this position, and you've got a flat ceiling above you, and you've got streamers, plumb lines coming down from every single one of them to meet the ground at 90 degrees in every single direction. That's what they're all doing, meeting the ground at 90 degrees below them. If you've got a plumb line attached to that star, metaphorically speaking, attached to the roof, just drops down everywhere around you from every single star and meets the ground at 90 degrees. So yeah, you can nitpick, and I'm slightly gobsmacked that 10th just rattled off that description off the top of your head, but that's a testament to how smart and well-researched 10th man is in this respect, because I wouldn't have been able to give you that answer. Brian was pretty damn close, but it's benign. It doesn't matter. All that matters is, in this process, you get a 90 degree to the zenith of the star, and all the book's describing is zenith positions for every star. What's the zenith position? Well, it's the plumb line drop down from every star. So as you look out in every direction, if every star was triangulatable, it'd all have a plumb line drop down to it to meet the ground. And the ground has to be flat for this to work. And that's all that matters. That's literally all that matters.
That's a good summary. That's a great summary, Nathan, because as I was going into it, I had a decision to make. Do I really want to know every detail? No. I made the decision not to spend my time trying to figure out every detail. I only spent my time, how can a sextant work? What's it designed for? How could it only work? And every time I ran into, like, there's one that's 7 hours long. The guy goes through boring as heck. But, I watched the whole thing. And I said, you know what? I don't care for that. I just want to know when the sextant is inoperative. And when is it operative? How does it work? And every definition of a sextant is it's an angle measuring device, and you need two objects, okay? The horizon has to be the baseline zero, and to make sure it's a baseline zero, you've got to minus your height on top of the boat plus your own height where the sextant meets your eye. So if you're a 6-foot man and you're on top of a boat 10 feet, that's 16 feet. You got to make a dip correction so that you can get that baseline zero to meet up with the GP of the sun that the book says is over here. The radius is 3,000 miles from you. And with this angle, voila, flat plane. Can't get an angle with a curved
what if
surface.
the horizon's looming?
That's the beauty. That wouldn't matter.
Don't be flippant about your answer to that question. What? Can you repeat the question, please, Q?
Yeah, this was the original question. Remember 10th?
Yes.
Right?
And
this is what got us on, because as soon as the Black Swan came out, and I've been hearing all these crazy horizons looming, I said, what about that sextant?
Right.
And 10 just ran with it. So the question is, what if the horizon's looming?
Then this isn't possible. Without the horizon representing 90 degrees from your position, then this measurement's not possible.
Doesn't matter.
And looming is the changing of something with respect to the horizon.
Yeah.
I'm saying looming in their paradigm where the horizon looms above the horizon, the nonsense. So
I knew
so guess what? It doesn't matter because that's apparent. So what we're measuring is the actual ground, not the apparent.
Well said. I gave this answer already. Go
If
on.
terrestrial refraction was real, none of it would be in its actual place in order for that sextant to work.
That's correct. That's the first point, Arwin. That's correct. So if it's looming, then it's not a reliable position to give you 90 degrees, which is absolutely what's going to be done regardless of where you're sighting the horizon. That's the first thing. The second thing is, to answer QE's question, when we nitpick, and I'm going to use those words, because we're talking about a difference in a super zoom camera of a horizon being either a little bit before or a little bit after some oil rigs. Now, I say nitpicking because if you've got a fundamentalist religious sphere belief, then that's the difference of a physical position moving 10 miles, making the sphere radius inflate to beyond a diameter of the orbital path of the moon. It's just ridiculous, right? Because they've got a stupid sphere belief with a geometric horizon. But QE's saying, well, what if it's loomed, and we take the loom to mean moving the position of the horizon with respect to the horizon into a new non-physical physical position that's just an optical representation of the physicality that we don't see because it only appears in the maths. Right, QE? Just to summarise your question before I give you an actual answer.
Yes.
Right. Well, if it's loomed, it's not geometric Earth curve. So every assumption that's made thereafter for the R-value based tangent, as it's described when Bob says he's putting a tangent flat plane on top of a sphere, or a chord being drawn through the sphere, or the centre of the Earth that they're going to get a 90 degree when they assume it after the fact when doing it on a flat plane, all of those things rely on and are dependent on a tangent-based geometric horizon. So to answer your question, what if the horizon's loomed, then the Earth is not a sphere?
Well, it's more than that. It's more than that. If the horizon is loomed, that means the sextants don't exist.
Precisely. That was my whole point.
They would never be as reliable as they are.
I thought that's what you meant.
Yeah, if nothing...
Before QE raised that bit, there was just one bit I wanted to add to what Tenth was saying, and it goes back to all that detail, all the timings, local times. That's brilliant, but what is the purpose of all of that? Fundamentally, it's to make your triangle more accurate in terms of its placement and therefore the accuracy of where you're at. That's all those extra details are about. They're just about making your triangle super, super accurate. So you've got maximum inference from what you gather. But fundamentally, it requires that triangle, not the opposite. That is the basics of it, and that's why it tends correct to stay there, because it's as we come to here, the principal workings of the optics to get the horizon, everything's based on that linear plane and the formation of triangles. Like I said, all the other detail is to make that triangle accurate.
Perfect. That's exactly the right angle triangle that the sextant, because when the star's over somewhere on the Earth and its radius is 3,000 miles away from you, and you're looking at the horizon beside it, it doesn't matter what the optics are. It doesn't matter. Like I asked one navigator when I talked to him, I said, what if you can't see the horizon, like it's fogged in? And he says, well, what can you see when it's fogged in? Aim it at that. That becomes your new horizon. And I said, so when it's really fogged in, but you can still see in front of you, say 100 yards or 100 feet? He says, yeah, that works the same.
Why?
So it represents that flat zero, and you still have to minus your dip to that, even if it's 100 feet in front of you.
Yeah, but what is in front of you? The limitation to your personal optical representation. So therefore, you can take it as read that what you will be presented with, based on how your eyeball works, is that optical limitation. Regardless of where, if it's 5 feet in front of you for fog, well, what can you see, he says. Well, what's the limit of your optical representation at that particular time? That's going to give you a horizontal, that is. That's what he's saying, isn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, he's saying it's because you need a 90 right angle from the GP to you on the surface of that water coming right to your boat. And you just have to get it to zero.
But it's
just before Adam goes, this is why I was saying about nitpicking. The difference in the picture on the Black Swan, if you were actually stood on a boat, pointing your sextant at the horizon to get your 90. Now, forget about dip angle correction for the moment. The difference in terms of what you would actually measure on your sextant would be negligible, if anything, between those 2 days that are represented in terms of their false claim that suddenly it's a white swan when the horizon's a little bit further up one of the oil rigs, when it should be like miles further down the frame. But that aside, the point is the difference in where you would still stand in the exact same position that that guy stood with his super zoom camera and point your sextant at the horizon, you'd get absolutely no difference in terms of the measurement. None. But because we can super zoom and blow it up to a nice big 16:9 aspect ratio, suddenly what, we think that that's a massive difference? No, it isn't.
Think of it this way, and I'll let Brian finish. The GP of a sun is 3,000 miles away. It's coming straight down. That's its zenith. That line it meets is the ocean, which is a plane, flat. It starts zooming at you like at speeds unknown, coming from the other direction, and it hits your sextant. It plows through everything. It has to be flat to get that 90-degree right angle. It doesn't matter what optics are. It just matters you get it to zero, because zero is also 3,000 miles away awaiting you to get that right angle.
I'll just add to that then, Nathan.
Just by zero, he means flat. It's 3,000 miles away, flat, at 90 degrees to your position, standing vertically, with the zenith running directly above, down through your head to the ground, and you've got them lined up parallel, both at 90 degrees below the star that you're looking at, or the sun that you're looking at. Flat between you and it, 3,000 miles. That's the main point of this argument the 10th's just made. That's why I'm stressing it, Adam. Sorry. Go ahead.
It literally is, and that is to reiterate your point, really. It's the knowledge, when they use the sextant, the knowledge of how the eye works when it's looking across a flat plane and how it will enable you to generate a 90 degree, even at sea. It's that knowledge that allows the sextants to work, and that's what they've used. That's how that guy's saying, even at that limited optics, the way in which the eye is going to work is going to allow you to generate your 90 degree minus your height, so the whole way in which, again, we know optics work is validating that flat plane as well, is the point. Yeah, because if it was optics over a curved surface, we know that wouldn't be consistent to meeting at eye level, and it's that meeting at eye level that allows you to get your parallel.
Brian's been trying to get a word in, so go ahead, Brian, and then I'll finish it up with the artificial horizon.
Thank you, Ted. Yeah, I just wanted to state, just going on the Scrat's question earlier, that without radio like we have today and digital aids, anyone could be lost at sea. Right? If you don't have those two things, anyone could be lost at sea. The difference between the person that survives, more than likely survives, and doesn't survive is the person with knowledge. So someone who is an experienced mariner could be lost at sea, but they will find where they are, and they will find their way to where they want to go. Even without an almanac, they will, if they're experienced, they would eventually find their way. With the almanac, they definitely would. Once they have their sextant and they can see the skies, they can see what they need to see. So if you've been blown off course by a storm, if you're an experienced mariner, you don't have radio and you don't have digital aids, let's just say, to help you out, like Google Earth or whatever nonsense, but you do have a sextant and you do have an almanac, then you will find your way. But you're just as lost. Basically, well, you're not as lost as someone else who hasn't been keeping a log, because you will be keeping a log. You will be keeping track of your time and where you are and your location from the day previous or 2 days previous, depends on how long the storm lasts. But you will find your way. So anyone can get lost. It's about having the experience to find yourself again.
Right, and we're going to prove this out. So with a little bit of sponsorship, we've got this highly experienced mariner and 10th man, and we're going to dump them at the opposite ends of an ocean and just see how they get on.
That's enough hint.
I'm going to have plenty of cigars, that's for sure. To pass the time, that is. The Polynesians used currents of the ocean, birds migrating, stars in the sky, wind. They didn't have a sextant. They didn't have nautical almanac. They knew and they were thousands of miles from island to island hopping, going to different islands. So yeah, there's many ways to do it once you're experienced. But the artificial horizon is something you can use on land even. It's a little harder at sea because if it's rocking, so you could do it if it's still. And so most navigators have an artificial horizon, or you can make one up. You can get a plate with a depression in it and pour water in it, or you can put molasses, something heavier, and it finds its level, right? Water finds its level. So once it's level and the sides are covered, so no wind is making the water surface have tension and move, you sight the luminary to the reflection on the plate on the water, and you can make that your artificial horizon. Just look up artificial horizon, go watch the videos. So if it's totally, I mean, you can't even see the horizon, you can use the artificial horizon. The airplane has a bubble sextant. When I say bubble sextant, what comes to your mind? Level, a level, like a spirit level. And they they have an opening in the plane at the top to shoot the star, and they keep the bubble sextant level, like to the horizon. It's all about zero baseline. It's all about having an angle being formed with two straight lines. So the depth of the globe is right there, just in the tool itself, whether it's the bubble sextant, artificial horizon, or at sea with an actual sextant where the horizon is 3 miles away or 100 feet away. You need a level line going to the GP of that sun back to you for the angle to be formed, and it's a right angle.
That zero is
There's a lady.
Go on, Brian.
Sorry, Nathan.
I was going to say the zero is a flat plane he's describing, just to make that absolutely clear. When he says a zero line, he means a flat plane beneath your feet. If you're zeroing it off in an aeroplane, i.e. dip correction, is still the same exact principle. You've got a streamer to the zenith of the aeroplane where you're taking the measurement with a bubble sextant rather than using a horizon that potentially can't be seen. But you're still ascertaining a level straight line and then reducing it down to the ground to meet at 90 degrees to anything else that's above the ground. Also at 90 degrees to it, also above a flat plane. That zero line is flat. Just want to stress that every time.
Well, yeah, and the airplane guy, his dip correction is maybe 30,000 feet, because he's still got to sight the sun's GP on the Earth, or the star's GP on the Earth. So he's still got to do it. He's got to get it to that baseline zero, flat, 180.
Go ahead, Brian.
There's a lady. Thanks, Nathan. There's a lady called Anna. She's of Nordic origins. She was telling me, she's a subscriber of mine, and she was saying to me about telling me to look into a thing called a sunstone, something that was used by the Vikings to find our way around. And she said it actually backs up QE's presentation. Not saying it needs backing up, but she said it totally backs up QE's presentation about refraction.
The sunstone is about placement of exact local time. It uses the crystalline lattice to look through, to allow you to look through clouds, because obviously what you can't do on a cloudy day is get the angle exact to give you exact time. So some way, I think it's some kind of polarization, but it allows you to see the sun. So it's old Norse mysticism as well, isn't it? Stuff, but they went to show that it's demonstrably usable, this old myth of the sunstones and that. But yeah, that's its purpose. Yeah. Locate the sun specifically.
That's so cool. So they would be looking to do this triangulation by way of gathering the light through the clouds by way of a stone that polarizes the light. That's amazing.
She said she has one. She said it's not expensive. She said it works. She can find the sun anywhere, she says. That's what she said to me.
That's cool. What's the name?
Yeah, when Brian showed me that, I looked it up, and I'll send some images right now so you can see how it works.
Cool. Very cool. Thank you very much, Brian. And thank you to Brian's subscriber. Awesome stuff. That's really cool.
That's not flat Earth.
I can't remember.
I knew that from kind of geeky Discovery Channel programs. This is stuff that, you know, the universities have researched, looked at, and just independent of, you know, just validated the old myths of why the Nordics could get across to America, etc. It's all part of how they were able to navigate the seas.
But when it's done, do you not notice how easy it is to just have a non-existent heliocentric rhetoric attached to the stories? You know, it's not like the historians that are giving you out this information on the Discovery Channel are sitting around going, oh, we've got to work out how we work this into the heliocentric model. They just completely forego it if it doesn't fit into the narrative and there wouldn't be a consideration necessary. They don't consider it. And why would you? And that's generally how the world works. You're wandering around on a flat plane not giving any consideration to the fact that it might be a spherical surface beneath your feet, because it isn't.
Well, wouldn't that
Nordics,
sunstone,
the Nordics had
isn't
their
that
Asgard,
evidence
Midgard
that
stuff, didn't they?
the sun rays are coming in divergent? Because otherwise, it would just be up, right? The sun would just be up. You won't be able to find its location unless, if the rays were coming in parallel.
Parallel from your position, do you mean? Because the claim isn't that they're just parallel to that one position that you look at the sun through. It's parallel everywhere across the entire surface, is the globe claim.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. So that sunstone actually proves that the rays are not coming in parallel. Because how would you be able to find the sun's location unless the rays are coming right? Otherwise, if they're coming in parallel, the location would just be up.
I see what you're saying.
Or am I mistaken?
No, I see what you're saying.
I got the pictures up in Masterby.
I'm presenting it now, 10th. I can't believe I remembered it that well.
How would you find the light if you're on the nighttime side of a globe? How would you find the light if you were on a spherical surface?
What light are you talking about?
With the sunstone. Well, the sunstone...
Are you asking how you'd find the sun at night? Are you trying to be a smart ass?
Well, yeah, but this is the whole point of the sunstone, is it finds you where the sun is on the earth. It finds, according to this lady, it finds where the sun is on the earth. But how do you even do that? Like, when it's, like, you don't need to find the sun during the day. You know where that is. You look at it.
No, that's the point, Brian. It doesn't find it you at night, but what you can't do is get the center of the sun when it's hidden by the clouds. Like, look out there today.
I know,
you cannot locate. So what you do is you hold it up. And it describes it there quite nicely. Look, you twist the sunstone until it appears at its brightest, and then you cross-reference up with another point. It's a bit like the triangulation, So you're mixing those 2 points to actually figure out the center point for you then to have your reading from, is how I understand it. Otherwise, all you've got is a blob over there, and you can't define the center of that blob.
Right, so it's just letting a certain wavelength of light through so you can get a more clear picture of where the centre is, so you can do a triangulation. Again, it's back to all of these extra steps. You could consider this an extra step. In the same way, if you're only a certain number of feet above the water, you wouldn't necessarily have to do the dip angle correction. Now, when you're in an aeroplane, yeah, you better be doing that dip angle correction, because it's going to mess things up if you don't. So, you ignore that step on the boat. Does it mean that you're drastically off course? Well, you might be a couple of miles off course because of your inaccuracy when you triangulated. Same thing applies here. So you're saying, well, there's the blob in the sky. Well, you can't get an exact centre to it because it's a blob. No, you can't get an exact centre. But you could... That's a brilliant picture of it. Thank you very much. Whoever's... Is it Adam presenting? Thank you. So you can get a clearer, more accurate measurement if you can get a clearer, more accurate centre by way of... I don't know if it is polarisation, but if that's the process, then we'll just stick to that just for the ease of description. Well, that's great because it'll get you more accuracy. Does it mean you couldn't do it? Well, no. As long as you can see the blob of light, you could still do it. You'd just probably be off by a considerable margin.
The trouble with this still is, I think it's translating in local time. This shows that the ancients had other methods of looking at the stars to confirm things, because we have to carry a watch around with us, as well as needing something like that to tell local time. So it does show that they had better ways of calculating it as well.
Maybe they had watches. I mean, who's to say what they did and didn't have?
You know, how did they have a map of these stars and when exactly they'll be where they are?
I agree. I mean, they say iPhones only came out recently, but there's a good chance they had them.
Sundial comes to mind.
Well, no, iPhone.
The Native Americans on the east coast of the United States have, I think it's I'm not sure if it's the Pawnee, but they have in their history documented reports of Gaelic, Celtic clans living there that came from here. Now that's pre any globe stuff. And the same with the Chinese and others. They have their own way. There's old ways they had of navigating, and that were ingenious. And that was before any spherical Earth was ever imagined. So how were these people finding their way around? They might have been a bit slower due to the not having, digital and radio and that, but how were they finding their way around? You know, if they didn't know it was a globe, if you know what I mean.
The Tam mentioned the Polynesians before. These are all ginger, blue-eyed people, I think. All of these navigators come through. But the Polynesians and the Maori, I think some of them describe how they did what they did and so how they did it. So they describe coming from the Middle East, going across the Atlantic, across South America, and then all the way around the Pacific to get to Polynesia and then down into New Zealand. And this is proven by their stories. They describe the omens, but they describe how they did it. All of them is by navigation using the stars. That's all in their ancient oral history, and none of them describe a ball. It's all based. It's the same navigation. It's about taking that angle and knowing the direction on the plane. But all the ancients use that. I think we're learning little bits. But if you look at things like what Tony presented, the Antikytherian mechanism, you'll see within that there's other astral bodies that allow you to calculate the time, because it tells you exactly where you are. If you know certain things, keeping a log, as QE mentioned earlier, that's crucial. You know what I mean? But as long as you do that, then you can calculate all these things. And we've only got little bits of knowledge. But look at the Antikytherian mechanism and look at what it put in there. They didn't just put it in for a laugh. It all had purpose for identifying and telling you where you are and what you're doing, where you are on the flat plane. That's how it all works.
Right, and when they tell us about the ancients knowing exactly where the stars were going to be and where they're going to be in the future and having a good record of it and how it's not exceptional for them to know this, it's because that's how it's been established and utilised for a long period of time. But it's only been a relatively short period of time that we've had the transposition of a globe onto the actual world we're living on. And in many instances, there's things like navigation in this regard that have been done in the same way prior to the presupposition of a sphere, will be done in the same way while the presupposition of a sphere is in effect, and will continue to be done in the same way after the nonsense globe model is forgotten and a dusty old memory.
Brian said that perhaps they may have done their measurements a little bit slower.
But it was put to me that these people were so good. Now, I don't know, but it was said to me that these people were so good at doing this, they could eyeball it. Like, they were very good at reading the sky, so much that they could tell when it was going to rain tomorrow.
Eyeball what? The angle?
I'm not sure. Sorry. But I was talking about it vaguely, and I was talking about the angles and all that, and it was just said to me, yeah, they read the sky. They were able to do all that stuff really quick, pretty much by looking at it. They didn't need all this extra stuff.
Okay, you're just joining in. They did it. We know they were looking at it. They're not going to do this stuff with their eyes closed. But great point. Glad to have you joining in.
Mate, just to go back to the ancients in terms of stuff, and I think we can accept that they probably had greater knowledge. It gave that they could look at stuff and know a lot more where they were, all the implications, and quote the Bible. You know, they were put there for us, for signs and seasons. And I think when you move into the heliocentric model, one of the most important things, if you're going to make something heliocentric, in terms it's just random, that crap out there, it isn't there for knowledge and signs particularly to guide you. You have to destroy that knowledge first. And look at the clocks across Europe, you know, the way they're simplified and reduced. That old knowledge used to be there. The moon used to tell us a lot more. That knowledge has been removed and had to be removed first for them to then supplant the heliocentric, because you can't maintain that knowledge that we've lost and then just go, oh no, it's nothing, because they keep telling you things. Look at the validity this gives to us for flat Earth. So,
well, this is where
I think historically,
remove the knowledge or forbid it. Literally, have people on the lookout. If somebody actually explains it the right way, secretly take them down. I think they'd rather do it like that.
Well, no,
because how can you forbid something when nobody's supposed to be understanding it, right?
Talking about people like Santos Bonacci, right, who's going through this sort of information and exposing it. Who's shutting him down? Well, nobody, because it's already long in the tooth information that can be ignored anyway, right? So his expose of some of the old ways of tracking and mapping stars is just poo-pooed as, oh, well, he's antiquated, because the information isn't prevalent mainstream information anymore. I think that's what Adam's point is. You know, the destruction of the information isn't necessarily eradicating it by book burning. It's just by having it not be prevalent and used. So are we tracking months or moonths? Well, we're tracking months, aren't we? So is it relevant if somebody points out that that's a way of tracking it? Because you go, well, but on Tuesday the 20th, I'm due at the dentist. So it's almost inconsequential once you've changed certain systems.
Yeah, Nathan, Owen, just
that is modern day.
Let me just explain that. Maybe with previous knowledge, and if you think of the Antikytherian mechanism, the way things interweave in the cogs, it's really quite clever. You could actually start to look at angles between Jupiter, Mars, maybe just take 2 or 3 of those and know exactly what day of the year it is. Yeah, these knowledge that I think was well known and used. That's why those things are on the ancient European clocks. You used to be able to look at them and know that knowledge was there. I'm not talking Santos Bonacci in terms of plotting it out and telling you what it means spiritually. I'm talking about what it means physically. That all of that, that's what the Antikytherian mechanism is. It's that knowledge wrapped up in cogs. But actually, if you, a layman, I don't think would have carried it, but they would have understood how to do it and take the readings of the stars to get that information that you need just to navigate yourself across the plane.
Well, isn't that part of the Jesuit tradition? What made them so powerful with their astronomy is that they did have this type of knowledge, and they were very secretive about it at the time, during the exploration age especially. Right? They kept it secret. They wouldn't just tell the mates on the ship exactly how to do that. No, they do that in secret. Right? Sizing up the stars using the sextants. That was secret.
Yeah. That's why they have the competition to make clocks local. Now, to have that competition, I think, in the 1700s, to allow the navigation we've been talking about, denies the thousands of years of accurate navigation that occurred, and the method, and well, to me, demonstrates they were using a different method. And like I said, that can only come from greater knowledge of the heavens.
Right. Well,
to
this
provide
is
you the detail that we have to provide by using local clocks, taking a translation of time.
Absolutely. This is why I perked up when the I can't remember who it was from the Discord server was asking about this and saying, well, we're referencing these arbitrary time measurements that are off in many different ways anyway. They're not that accurate. You know, they need adjustment every 4 years, not to mention other issues that I won't get into. But you're using this construct that seems to have been superimposed onto a method that, up until you start using your clocks, seems quite elegant, right? And then you suddenly start getting into some of these constructs that we superimpose on it, and it seems a bit less elegant. And you go, well, what's missing? Well, that which you've just explained is missing. And a way of not requiring that supplementary, expensive mariner's clock that, you know, back in the day, clocks were horrendously expensive. Just having one would have cost a fortune, and then keeping on top of it, you had to pay a man to come round to you daily to check on his much more accurate watch how the time was actually getting on, because your clock wasn't going to be accurate. So in other words, just doing this based on that premise, with watches not being all that accurate, the time construct or convention that's used not being that accurate, having this transposed onto something that seems beautifully accurate in terms of knowing exactly where that star's going to be at a given time. And you're like, why does it all fall apart at that particular part? It's like, well, because presumably prior to this they didn't use that. They got all of the information they needed from the sky in the first instance, and they didn't have to refer to any clocks.
Yep. Besides, the time clock-based time mechanism is originally really based on the heavens anyway, just like the Antikythera machine.
Precisely. Where'd you get this derivation? And everything about the model that's going to be wrapped around the time has come from that sky movement or derivation thereof in the first instance. And then you take it even one step further down that rabbit hole, and they invent an entire medium based on that. And then you've got bendy space-time being causal in the mind's eye of idiots. You're like, bloody hell, man. It's, every time there's another layer of nonsense slapped onto this story and people pull it apart, they just slap another layer of crap on top.
Nathan, Flatzoid's going to premiere a show on the Sextant. I put a screenshot in Master B. And for Eli, I've got the hand measurements for degrees as well.
Ah, nice. You knew what I had in mind.
Oh my,
Yeah, I've been posting them in all those images in Discord, by the way, while Tent's been posting them in Skype.
It's like there's a load of admin going on, so I'm probably going to round out on that note. I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you, first and foremost, to all of you watching in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, and for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, hitting the PayPal link, and all that good stuff. Also, below this video, you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. I've been Nathan Oakley. Another massive thank you to today's Discord and G+ panels, and I will see you all in the next video.